Check, Chuffy 1, 2. Check, Chuffy 1, 2. Oh, I better do this as well, hadn't I? I better do this. A bit late on that now. Ooh, a bit late on that. The old Hey You. The old Hey You's rocking and rolling, look. Ooh, what's that mean? It means come here. Come here. Have a look at this, you chuffer. Have a little look at this, you chuffer. Well, that's gone now. That's gone. Let me just check it's working. 1, 2. Have a look at this, you chuffer. Have a little look at this, you chuffer. Well, that's gone. Okay, it's working. It's working. I'm the grave kipper. You can see through me, look. It's because I'm wearing a red t-shirt. Now, it's not green screen. It's red screen. So if I show you this, look at that. That's what we're really looking at. But because we want to see the background, we're on red screen, which means my face looks a little bit strange, doesn't it? Because I knock out all the red tone in my face. Grave kipper. Undead, aren't I? It's like undead, so it's alright, isn't it? You can cope with that, can't you? I can cope with that. Don't mind that. That's fine. It's fine. We can live with that. Yeah, I was going to see if there's any red in my mouth. You could see through it, because you can see through my lips. And hence today's t-shirt. You can see right through it. Because we're looking at the background. We're looking at the worst places to live in England. Well, that's not the worst place to live in England, is it? That's Big Ben. You can't live there. It's a clock tower. You can't live in a clock tower. What's that music? What's that music? Crashing in. This is no copyright soft piano music. It's getting a bit loud, isn't it, you? Calm yourself down. Thought we'd just try some no copyright soft piano music, but it's getting a bit... You want to chill out, you no copyright soft piano music, or I'll bin you off in favour of some classical stress relief, no copyright. Just want it quiet in the background, you chuffer. Just want it quiet in the background. Hang on. And it needs to be over an hour, because we might take a little bit longer than an hour. There's one. It's going to be quiet enough. Just so you can hear it, look. Just so you can hear it, but not so loud that it drowns me out. Just so you can hear it, look. I can't really tell. I've got no way of telling. You have to tell me. You have to tell me if it's too loud, if the classical music in the background is too loud. But what we're really going to do, I'll turn it off in a minute anyway, because we're going to watch this 10 worst places to live in England. It's a little cheeky video, 10 worst places to live in England. Now, I've got my ideas. I'm going to give you a couple of ideas before we start, and then we're going to... It's not going to be Big Ben, is it? It's not going to be Big Ben. I'm going to try not to be too negative as well about these places, because I live in England. I poo-poo all the places. And it's through the context of... there's a war in Ukraine, isn't there? There's a war in Ukraine. And people are leaving. They're looking for places to live. Refugees. Why don't you come to England? I'll show you some of the worst places, and you might think Ukraine's still the more attractive option at this time after you've seen these. So it's just a little light humour. But first, I wanted to show you... What's this? What's this place? This doesn't look one of the worst places. I mean, it looks all on the wonk for a start. Whoever's taken this photo, you've taken that on the wonk, mate. This doesn't look too bad, does it, though? What's this? What's this place? Over there's like a theatre. It's like a canal basin. This is Stratford-upon-Avon. This is where I live. It's a lovely little town. Look, it looks nice on the waterside. If I move us to Street View, I mean, I don't know. I want to just drop us in on the old Street View. This is where Shakespeare's... It's all pedestrianised in this part of town. Not this part. It's just one of the chuffing roads. I'll know where I am once I've looked round. Hang on. Yeah, okay, I can go up here. So this is the town where I live. Looks like a sort of normal sort of town in ways. I was telling you the other day about this pub. That's the One Elm there. That's that pub. The One Elm. It's the pub I used to go in a lot. One Elm. And that used to be a restaurant. It's now an insurance. Used to be a restaurant. Up here, this is where Shakespeare's birthplace is, and it's in the town. And it's all pedestrianised. Look, oh look, someone's doing a little bit of filming. That looks like me. It's the sort of stuff I do. Don't wear a high vis though. Don't wear a high vis. So this is in the town, look. It's on the little, it's lovely, isn't it? Lovely. It's where the tourists come, this is. It's where the tourists come. Little shops. And this bit here is the actual Shakespeare Centre. People going in there to see the Shakespeare stuff. It's not the theatre's down the other end of town, it's the Shakespeare Centre. This shop here, the Food of Love, my mate runs that. I'll show you my old hairdressers. Just round the corner. Look, this is how I was living. This is that's the pedestrian bit. At the top of that road there, you follow this road down. Just doesn't look like that anymore. What's happened there? Someone knocked that down for this. That's weird. Maybe this was these photos must have been taken at a time, because there's a big hotel built there. Must have been before the hotel was rebuilt. Must have been during the rebuild, because they knocked it down and rebuilt it essentially. Big hotel there. And you come down here into the town. This is the town. So this is parallel, adjacent to that old Shakespeare Street that we could have walked through one of these little alleyways. Here. And one of the little alleyways, actually, it says Leon Hale now. Well, it doesn't now, it's someone else now. But that's my little hairdressing shop there, that one. That was my little hairdressing shop. Just tucked in between a hotel and a restaurant. Little hairdressing salon. That was mine for a bit. Still got my little board out the front there. Probably. Oh, we used to have some times. And you just walk up this mere street here. This mere street. Little pedestrian bit, you see? Look, little pedestrian bit. So the Google car hasn't gone up there, but that's back up to that Shakespeare zone up there. That pedestrian bit. Lovely little town I live in. There's the bookies. Over here is where all the alcoholics and drug addicts used to hang out. It's what we call the American Fountain. That there. The American Fountain. And they used to sit around there and the benches. Because over the road there's the one stop and the bookies. So, the music's... Chuff off, man. I just want relaxing, quiet music in the background. It has to be game music. Oh, why does it do this to me? I'm going to pop out chat, so I've got chat visible at all times, just in case. And we'll just go with a relaxing music that we know that works.
When I was a student...
Not an advert, you chuffer. Grammarly gets me so cross. It gets me so cross. Please never buy Grammarly. I just want that quiet in the background. So I've got the desktop audio turned up for you because we're going to have video played in a minute, but why can't I have what I want? Just quiet music in the background. So privileged. I am so privileged. I live in this lovely town. I'm just showing you. Just showing you my lovely town. Look. It's annoying me now. The music is annoying. It's not relaxing me. It's annoying me. It's annoying me. Where's the one that we usually use? We must have used this if we got 3 hours into it. Just quiet, please. Quiet. Quiet for me. Okay. Just kicked in then, didn't it? I was like, that's okay. And then it kicked in. I mean, this is if this doesn't work, then I'm just going to wave sounds. One, two, check, 1, 2. 1, 2, check, 1, 2. I can't tell. 1, 2, check, 1, 2. 1, 2, check, 1, 2. What can you tell? I can't tell. Right. So, thanks, Chris Collins. I think this one will work. So, it's 10 minutes, it says, but it's 10 hours. 10 hours. 10 hours of it. Okay, fair play. Fair play. Let's hope this works. Just relaxing background music. So this is a little town. That's where the alcoholics and drug addicts used to hang out. Some of them are in prison now for a murder they did where they beat a man to death just down that other street that I was just taking you up. So everywhere you get, you see, this is a lovely little town, isn't it? Look, there's the old Thatch Tavern over the way from there. Old Thatch Tavern, look. Actual thatch roof, old Shakespearean building, still being run as a pub. I'll take you to a little Shakespearean pub that we locals drink at. Well, I don't drink anymore, but this is the Town Hall Civic Centre, which used to be, it's not really a civic centre now, it's like a playhouse. I don't know what it is now, you know, it's one of these places that's supposed to be used for positive social things, like a little mini theatre complex with little offices, you know, social arts centre, but it keeps falling into disrepair and people keep buying it and selling it and buying it and selling it, and one day it'll be a hotel, I suppose, but you know, we need more things like that actually working in town. So this pub here is one of the I'm going to say this, I don't care, it's one of the worst in the town. The lamplighter on this corner, one of the worst in the town, has a lot of rough people. And up this little alleyway, it was one of the best in the town. You go up that little alleyway there and you're at the Queen's Head. We used to drink there with the roofers, and this little arena here that I'm in has been the arena for many a fight, many a drunken bar brawl, one or two of which I was present at. So that's, you know, I'm just showing you that we live in a nice town, but actually everywhere you go, you've got kind of like, you know, doesn't matter where you live, you can live in this town and people get beat to death in the street, you know. It's true that is. Up Ely Street here, it's a lovely little street, isn't it? Lovely little street up here. Some people call it Ely Street. Some of the hairdressers, antique shops. There's the Queen's Head, little Italian restaurant, the Cross Keys there, the Keys and Kitchen, whatever you want to call it. It's changed hands a few times. Another pub. I mean, I know my way around by all the pubs, don't I? Because I used to drinking them all. But up here, and look, this says "God Save the King" on there. You can't really read it, but it says "God Save the King," not the Queen, the King, in old lettering. It's worn off now. That's the town hall. Down here, this here is where you start getting, like, that's Shakespeare Hotel there. I mean, look at it. Listed old building, yeah, Shakespeare Hotel. That is owned by people that have got lots of money. And over this way, I mean, all these places get a little bit expensive in ways. On the next corner down, so lovely little shops. Look, nothing's very big. Lovely little Elizabethan town. This is Shakespeare's old house, but they tore it down. It's true, this is. They tore down Shakespeare's house because, well, people coming to visit it and look at it. This is way back in the olden days. They tore it down. The bloke that owned it, he was like, I don't want people coming and all looking through my windows all the time. Just tore it down. Like this, I'm talking like, you know, 1500s. And this partially renovated. It looks much more better renovated. It was just in the process of being renovated. That's the Falcon Hotel, and that's another. It's a hotel, but it's just a little, you know, set of Elizabethan buildings. It's lovely inside. Very. I mean, you couldn't buy that. I don't know anyone who could afford to buy that. Only Russian oligarchs. And this was my school. Just here, look. That was my school. That chapel there was built by the guild way back in Shakespeare's time. Shakespeare's dad was in the guild and he built this chapel, the town guild, and they had a school attached to it. And that's now, you can see there back there, all the rest of the new school buildings. I used to go to school there. That was where I ate my lunch. Right opposite from Shakespeare's house. And the chapel, we used to go in there every morning. And you can just sort of see here, but you can't really see. This building here is Shakespeare's big school. That was the original school, all that building there. So I actually went to school in the same room, up there, in the same room that Shakespeare went to school in. Back when Shakespeare went, they all went to school in the same room. Like there was like an entire school's worth of kids in that one building, and they had two blackboards, one on either end, and they'd do lessons in one big room. Obviously now we have a lot more buildings and rules about the number of kids in a room. They don't use it as a school anymore. They use it as a little library tour thing, take you on a little tour around it. But we used to use it as a school building, and I went to do Latin lessons in Shakespeare's actual school, and it's attached to the chapel. So that was my school. I'm very lucky. It's a grammar school, so you get in by taking an exam. I couldn't afford to go to a public school, paid to go to one of those posh schools. I couldn't afford to do that. My parents couldn't afford to do that. But I was lucky that I got into a nice school by merit of passing an exam. So I was lucky in that way. And this literally over the road from that, is called the Church Street Townhouse. That's another really expensive, it looks like it's an old Georgian property. It's got crenellations on the roof there. But that's actually another bar and restaurant. A lot of these old buildings end up being bars and restaurants owned by very expensive rich people. They make a lot of money because Stratford's a tourist town. Very expensive. You'll see the cars parked on the roads. Look, you'll see some nice cars parked around. But this is the council buildings there. Old buildings again. Just down the bottom here. This is the other entrance from the school. We used to come out here and stand out here in this delicatessen. We'd get sandwiches and maybe other things. And just here is the windmill. This is an old, and when I say old, I mean old. Inside there, you've got walls and doors that were part of the old structure of the old Elizabethan buildings. So they're not there anymore. They're just like beams and ways you walk through. But they would have been little wall. It would have been not one big open space as much as it is now. It would have been lots of small rooms. And it's an old place, the windmill. And we all used to go and drink there. That was one of our haunts, the windmill. So a lovely town, Stratford. This is where I live. I'm lucky to live here. I say that in other ways, it's quite, it can get a bit snobby. You can have a lot of people who sneer and look down on or think they're better than in other ways. Obviously, they're not going to come over the road and start pointing at you and telling you, but you get that vibe from certain people. There's a lot of elitism in some of the establishments. Certainly the theatre, which I love the theatre and the whole concept, but there's a lot of elitism around the theatre, and me just being a sort of normal person that lives in the town, I don't get treated with the same kid gloves that esteemed guests and actors at the theatre get. Like when you go and you watch it and you have a drink in the bar and watch the theatre, I just get a vibe. So I'm not always at the theatre, but I do love it. I think it's brilliant. This place here, Nash's house, this is an old, is this Nash's house or the hall, I can't remember my names. This was an old doctor, anyway, and a doctor, and it's an old, it's kept as a living museum, one of those sort of places where you go and everything's old, and because of that, get this, behind that wall there, this stone wall is the garden, and it's lovely, and you could have a little look around, but you can't look around it because they built a wall, so make sure that you have to pay. Don't you dare look at that garden without paying first in that little place. So it's cool though, isn't it? Lovely Stratford upon Avon here. This is where I'm from. Do you want to see it in more, because I've got my face on the big face, do you want to see it in more clarity? I'll do the web browser like that, and I will need to show, I'm going to show you the worst places in the UK first. I just wanted to give you some context because I think it's only fair, and I'm so grateful, I'm so lucky that I live in this place. This here is a war memorial garden attached to this church, and I come here sometimes just to sit and be quiet, and so do the drunks and alcoholics, and they like to sit just there and drink themselves to death over a period of months, years, but it's a little peaceful garden, that is. And you come down here, and this is the theatre gardens. There's a lot of trees, so you won't be able to see it as much, but in there is, can you get in there? Google? No, strange. But in there is the theatre gardens, and there's a river that runs through the river. Stratford's on a river, Stratford upon the Avon. And down here is the Holy Trinity Church. This is, again, like, we're getting into the old part of town that, you're not going to be able to, what was I going to say? You're not going to be able to do any renovations and redevelopments down here. Only, churches and wealthy people can own property there. And you come back up this way toward the theatre. So we're not going to walk through the gardens, but we're going to walk down this little road, and this little road will take us past the gardens that you can see them there on our right, through those trees, and down here you'll get another theatre. This is called the Other Place, or or the other space. It's like an extra theatre that we're so lucky to have. That big iron shed has been built on. The iron shed, they call it. It was temporary and now it's permanent. This is a sort of more modern theatre space, knocked up, so you can fit more theatre. So there's a COVID testing centre at one point, look. Fit more theatre goings on. You might be able to see it. There's the river running through the grounds, the park. When we've all got access to that, it's not cordoned off or anything. And down here, you follow this road down and it's the theatre. We're back into town now. This is the famous Dirty Duck. All the actors go in here after the theatre. They've got all their pictures on the walls. And I used to date an actress. I met her in there. And just over the road from the famous Dirty Duck... Oh, I've just moved the thing, have I? Whoops. Just over the road from the famous Dirty Duck is the famous Dirty Duck Gardens. And you can take your beers from the Dirty Duck in plastic cups down here, just by the river. And what you see there, it looks like rubbish on the ground, but it's not. That's actually 4, 8, 16. They're little concrete post markings, and they used to have a game, like an Elizabethan game of like croquet or whatever. They used to play it down there, and now they don't. Now there's just the concrete post markers, but they're good for standing your little beer on and sitting on these walls. And we all go down there, and again, people like me smoke cheeky cigarettes, and you get all the normal people just out by the river, sat down, having a beer. And it's right cheek by jowl with the posh people and the people that go to the theatre. I say normal people, normal people. Behind this wall, again, they like to wall these things off. This is a lovely garden, and it's attached to this hotel, which, again, exclusive and expensive. Any of us can go and get a drink. We can go and get a drink in there, sit at the tables, have a little bit of food. But if you're planning on coming to Stratford and staying in a hotel, this is where it gets more expensive. But, it's nice. And a lot of these, like I said, one of the problems we've got in the town, being a small tourist town, is a lot of these buildings end up becoming hotels because rich people can afford to buy them and turn them into hotels and make money, but the rest of us can't really, it's hard to get a business going that makes enough money to support a building like that when it's listed and in the centre of Stratford, right opposite this theatre. And the way the things are, like, everything's just getting turned into hotels, and you get bars and restaurants that open and close and open and close, and some of them survive, but I don't know. It's a shame, and it's good in a way as well. It's good in a way because we've got something there that's pretty, and you can go and have a drink but I'd prefer it if it was a bit more of a, if it wasn't a pub, if it wasn't an alcohol selling centre. If instead it was some sort of educational, touristy precinct. You know what I'm saying? I just think, I don't know. It's the Arden Hotel, so there you go. They are trying to build one of those more educational precincty things up behind these buildings. I believe that's what this scaffolding here. This is one of the buildings that's owned by the theatre, and they keep all the costumes in there. So I think they're trying to put some sort of public-facing experience through that. And of course, here's the theatre. We're coming at it from the wrong end, really, in a way. But look at it. Old theatre. There's new renovation put on, and while they were doing this new bit, I was really lucky because one of the ladies whose hair I used to do, a friend of mine, she was quite important and up in charge of the actual renovation. I think she was I can't remember what the name of the title of her job was, but she got me allowed looking around it, and I had a good look around all of this when it was freshly built. I got on the roof and everything. I'm very pleased to be able to do that because I love my local town and the things that go on in it. So I was glad to have a look. And then this side of it is the more public facing side, the new side with the tower and the glass doors, and you've got all the lovely theatres in there. The Swan Theatre, there's 2 theatres in there, I think 3 maybe 2. I think there's 2, the RSC and the Swan. Yeah, there's 2 in there, and up the road you've got the other space. So, and then these are gardens. Look, lovely gardens where one of my mates was threatened with a screwdriver one night, where one of my other mates was punched in the face, and the police came, and it was a mass brawl essentially, and the police came in, and also an ambulance to stitch his face up. This is the waterside, so it sounds nice, doesn't it? And it's nice in the day with all the tourists, but until they got the cameras put in over the last 20 years, it can be a bit of a hot spot for violence at night time. Not always. I mean, young people, we just used to go and hang out, didn't we? And things happen. I don't know. But I just wanted to make it clear that this is a lovely tourist town, and we're going to be looking at the worst places in the UK. I mean, I've spent so long showing you around my town, but this is where they house, or used to house, people who had come out of, it's like a halfway house for people who are out of rehab or drug addiction or other things like that. So you'd get some decent people trying to get on with their lives in there, and you get some other people who would spend their day just over here drinking and passed out on drugs, and then crawling back to their little houses there on the waterside. So yeah, it's just, it's like any other town, isn't it? Like any other town, in a different way, because we've got Stratford and we've got Shakespeare, so we're different. It's our main street, Bridge Street. Bridge Street used to have another row of houses down the middle in Shakespearean times, another entire row of buildings down the middle, but they're all gone now. Makes for a big wide street that you can get your buses and coaches down, so that's nice, isn't it? Look, there's McDonald's and Greggs, there's Poundland. So you look at that and it's nothing special, is it, Stratford? It's just the same as everywhere else. But then you go around this corner just down here, and we've got these lovely things that other places don't necessarily have. And so it's an interesting juxtaposition. Prince Charles comes to this theatre from time to time. He likes to come to the theatre. David Tennant, Robbie Williams, they've all been there to that theatre on their big nights out. But most of the people who go to the McDonald's around this corner, most of the people who go to these places up this, most of the people that shop in Poundland probably don't go to that theatre so often, and they don't hang out in the same circles. So it's just cheap by jowl there. Up Bridge Street here. You got your Boots. Yeah, you go. Look, we used to have a Woolworths until it turned into Poundland, and it's just a normal shopping street, really, isn't it? Even though it's bang in the centre of lovely Shakespearean Stratford. Little market town that doesn't have a permanent market because they don't know what they're doing in the town. Don't get me started on local politics. So it's not the worst place to live where I live. It's not the worst place to live. It's okay. It's quite nice. You still get all those same social problems as anywhere else. I'll show you something else. I'll just take you down a couple of streets. Oh, no, not this. And then we'll get on to the worst places to live video. But this is a lot more relaxing in a way. So stop doing that. I just want to be on the street. Why does it not work for me sometimes? The old Tinternet. No, it's not that I want to delete. I'm not very good at using this. I want to delete this thing on the left. Right, go away, yeah. So I'll take you back up here. Look, this is Shakespeare's birthplace. Gone the wrong way down the road. Oh, there was a Ferrari there. I told you there were nice cars around, didn't I? Told you there were nice cars around. Where was it? I swear there was a Ferrari there for a second ago. Oh well, that traffic warden probably had it. Now what's going on? Why can't I go over there? There, look, there's a Ferrari ahead of us there. You see a lot of nice cars driving around. So this is Shakespeare's birthplace. This is the top of the street, Shakespeare's birthplace, Henley Street. All the pedestrians, look, all the tourists, Shakespeare's birthplace, the big Shakespeare Centre, all the tourists, all the pedestrians, nice day out, buskers on the corner, yeah? You go up here, you go over here, and this traffic island here between these two bars, these two pubs, One Elm and that other one, and just up here, someone was kicked to death in the street. Just up here. Kicked to death in the street by a bunch of tramps and alcoholics who thought that he'd sold them bad drugs. But it turned out he hadn't sold them any drugs. They just got confused with who he was. They thought he was a drug dealer and he was just somebody. That's the story anyway. I don't know. I don't know. They didn't get the right guy. They did, whatever. I think they didn't, because that was what... They went to court. They got found guilty of murder because they kicked him to death in the street just over here. Over some failed drug deal. So, lovely Stratford. And I wanted to continue just to show you actually another couple of places. I'm not going to show you my exact house, of course. But I just want to show you sort of where I live, the way we live. You go up the Birmingham Road here. There's McDonald's and Travel Lodge. Suddenly this is just like everywhere else you recognise in the rest of the UK. There's Halfords. Suddenly it stops being all Shakespeare. Suddenly it stops being all, pristine and lovely, and they spend the money, the local council spend a lot of money down there in the town on the local, tourists. up here where normal people live, you've got more new houses, more new builds. I don't live in a new build, but like you've got a load of new houses going in opposite the old Jewson and B&M. You've got on every direct route out of town now, you've got one of these shopping centres, which is all owned by the same local bloke who's really rich. And you've got all your, Asda and all that up there, haven't you? That's how we're living. That's how we're living. And on every major artery out of the town, the sky changed then, that was interesting. It peters out into your basic housing estates and what I'd call normal houses. Normal houses, they've still got their Christmas decorations out. I bet they've still got them out now, the chuffers, because they like that. Normal houses look up the Birmingham Road. I live in a normal house in between what we've just seen and a new build. Something a bit like this place up here, Justin's Avenue. This is known for being a bit rough, and someone got kicked to death outside their front door up here, literally beaten to death over a scuffle. So I live in a house a bit like this. It's not this house, but I don't live on this avenue, but this is Justin's Avenue. I don't live on Justin's Avenue. It's got a reputation. But you go up a few avenues around the places. These are all just housing estates, look. Council housing estates all around Stratford. All look very similar, don't they? Houses like that round my way. I don't live in one of these. I live in one of the ones that in between that and this. It's not as new build, but nor is it an old council house. It's probably more like that. I live in a house like that, just off the main bit of Stratford, like most of us do. And if I zoom out, go back onto the map view, I want to show you my local pub. Obviously I don't want to show you where I live, not my house. I think it just came up there on the Google Maps, so you might be able to, if you're quick and you're sharp, you might have been able to see that. So I better be careful not to show you my actual house. But if I drop us down here, I should be able to find the pub from here, shouldn't I? Should be able to anyway. I'm going the wrong way down the road, am I? So I just live in a normal sort of, place. Nice and relaxing here. Nice and relaxing. I'm just clicking this around the old roads till I find the ones that I recognise. And I'll drive us around to the pub, look, and I'll show you where my local boozer is. Yeah, we're on the right sort of path here. This is sort of where I live. This sort of area. So you go down this road, there's a school down here. And what they put near the schools these days is, this is an old folks home. And then down here, I mean, the pub's probably been there longer than the school, hasn't it? But you've got the school there, primary school for all the little kids. And just over the way, for convenience, you've got the local boozer there, the pub, and the one-stop shop and the bookies. That's how I'm living. This is... Why is it all blurred out? What's going on? That's the bookies and the one-stop. Why can't I go have a look at the pub? There we are. Look, this is our local boozer. It's weird the way I couldn't go in there and it's all blurred out there. I want to just go in there. That's where I want to go. And it's a load of rubbish, really. Next to the one-stop. I want to show you that little wall that we go on. I'm not allowed to. What's going on? Well, how annoying for me that the one thing I want to show... Right, just in there, in this... I don't know if you can see where my little... Yeah, where my little square is there. Just my little square at the end of the building of the one-stop. Just there. Can I go there? No. Right. Chuffer. There's a little wall, and it goes behind the car park. little wall behind the one stop, little wall, and we used to sit there, have a night out. Sweet. So that's around my way. Let's get into the worst places in the UK and let's see how they compare. Because I would tell you that I live in absolute paradise. I live in absolute paradise wonderland. You know, I live in a lovely little town. There's my big face. I live in a lovely little paradise wonderland. But at the same time, you know, like everywhere in the UK, there are deprived areas within. Just getting my vape on the go. And that's normal people, and the people who are really suffering, and the people who've got lots of money. I forgot to show you that actually, didn't I? I should have showed you that. The people who've got lots of money, because if I just zoom out from us normal people, and I take you up the Tiddington Road, I think if I zoom in over here, so they call it the Warwick Road. I call it. Oh, it's here. Look, just out of town on a different road. You can see all this. Wait. Before I drop us in. Moving it so you can see it. You can see all this urbanisation. When I try and drop us in, you can see all this urbanisation over here. Yeah, but just here where the golf club is, the golf club, and the Tiddington Road. There's no urbanisation around it. There's the river, so that prevents part of it. There's the golf club, that prevents another part of it. But they're not having all those buildings, you know, all those new buildings and all those houses we were just looking around. Not having all that up here. You're not getting that up here. This is staying as it is, mate. And why is that? Because the people that live up this road, all these houses are like Gillian's. They're the big houses with the expensive, lots of money. Like very expensive big houses there. My friend used to live at that one actually, I think. Very expensive big houses. They might not seem so impressive if you're in America and you know thinking about your mansions and your £1 million homes. They might not seem so impressive from this outer exterior bit, this front bit, but believe me, that goes back and it's got a swimming pool and and all that business, and it backs onto the golf club. And on the other side, look, it's just fields. Right, this is where you call this Millionaires Row. It's where your rich people do, and it's just down the road from, they've got, you can't see, but they've got a nice Land Rover in there, I'm sure. The Ferraris in garages, little Georgian pillars, look. So just down the road, literally just down a different road, is this super rich. And it gets in the villages around and away, you've got your Jeremy Clarksons down the road in the village and all that. It gets rich, you can get rich. Anyway, all that in context, these are the 10 worst places to live. So there was one other thing I wanted to do before we started, and we've, how long have we been going now? Half an hour. I wanted to point out the first thing, like I just did, that everywhere you go in England, doesn't matter whether it's, lovely one side and rubbish the next, or it doesn't matter whether it's, posh Chelsea in London, round the way you've got dangerous Brixton. Everywhere's just a stone's throw from somewhere else that's not quite as nice, or is nicer, depending on which. So it's hard to say. Like, you could say Stratford is a lovely part of the world, Stratford-upon-Avon, a lovely part of the world. But I've just shown you where someone got kicked to death over a drug deal. I've just shown you where all the drunks and alcoholics hang out. Everywhere's got the same. I've just shown you all the council houses, not all of them, but I've just shown you the local boozer that's a bit like the pub from Shameless, and that's all in Stratford-upon-Avon. So the picture postcard bit, the money gets spent on the town and the certain areas and the golf club, but not all of it is like that. And actually, I used to fund the people at the golf club because my landlord, she owned the building, but she used to go playing golf because she didn't have to work, because I used to pay the money to the landlord. So there's this juxtaposition between the very working class, the people that are suffering, and the super rich who are profiting off us in everywhere in England. I wanted to say that. And I was going to put a little list of my places where I thought was the worst. That's not that one. It's not that one. It could be Gravekipper. On the big face, it must have been notes. Yeah, they're my places. my places, my 5 places, but I haven't really got, because of that, I thought before, where would I put? I haven't really got 5 places. I know there's places that I visited that I could put on the list because I've been there, but I haven't got the experience of being in all the different places in England for an extended period of time, so I can actually judge. I can only just sort of generally go on. And then there's the thing of deprived areas, social deprivation, poverty, and that would mean that they're all in the north, because those places have theoretically got less money. But like I said, there's places in Stratford-upon-Avon that people live in poverty, but we're not an impoverished area. So, just because all the majority of the poverty on average is in the northern cities doesn't mean London's free from poverty. Do you know what I mean? So I would actually put certain places in London in there, but then you can't say London because it's the best. So do you know what I mean? It's hard, isn't it? So I haven't got 5 places really. Let's have a look. But although I'll tell you my guess before we start, and I don't want to be down on any places and down on your place. Oh, down on your place. But my top 5 places I really wouldn't want to live. London would be number 1, and open brackets, like, it's not all bad. Like, if you live in Chelsea or Notting Hill, it's very, very posh, but I can't choose, can I? So I would end up living in one. And Chelsea's got, Grenfell Tower, where they all burned to death. All the people that lived in that tower block, and they all burned to death. That was right in Chelsea, wasn't it? The nicest, poshest bit. So, but I'd put London, open brackets. I don't know where the worst part of London is, but I would guess Brixton is violent. You've had the riots and all that. Although I like, I like the culture that comes out of Brixton. But is Brixton the worst place to live? Hounslow. I don't know if I could spell it. There's some rough places in London, is what I'm going to say, and it's harsh because they are generally the places where immigration, because we're doing this through the context of Ukraine, remember, where we housed immigrants and they had impoverished communities and lacked social funding and organisation and policy. So like you had, this is going back now, but you had really bad landlords, like slum landlords, and we created these faux ghettos, and it's born of that. So it's not that I'm being racist and saying, oh, that's where the black people live, so it's bad, but that is part of that story as well. So that's difficult. Somewhere else I really wouldn't want to live, in England. This is not including Scotland and Wales. Just England, because I wouldn't mind living in Scotland, but one of the worst places in England that I've personally been to. Well, I used to live in one of them. I used to live in Fish Ponds in Bristol, but Eastville. Shall I show you these places as well? I suppose I should, shouldn't I? Just quickly show you Eastville in Bristol. How do I do that? Close that. Eastville, Bristol. It probably isn't that bad. My address just came up then on the thing, Fish Ponds. Not my actual address, but Fish Ponds just came up then. It's probably not that bad when you think of it in certain ways. I don't know. I'm just going to drop us in, see what we like. It's right by the motorway. Probably doesn't look that bad in pictures, but you can get accosted on the streets walking home in certain places. You get a bit more prostitution on the streets in certain places, and Eastville is one of them, frankly. I could pick on St Paul's. St Paul's is a much more black community, but because of that, it's dangerous for certain people. See, look, you just got all these normal little student houses, student digs just down all these roads. I used to live in a place just like this, and it seems fine, seems lovely, doesn't it? But like, there's the motorway. There's the motorway, which is not very attractive, is it? Not very nice, the motorway. And just the drug dealing, the crime, that sort of business, it just used to go on, didn't it? So just over here down the big motorway, just trying to find a place where you can see that it looks run down, but it doesn't look that particularly run down. It just used to go on. Let's see if I can show you my walk home. Easton, that was bad as well. Easton, St Paul's there, and Easton, these places were bad. I used to walk home from the centre of Bristol down here up this way. Hillfields, we've got one of those in Coventry. Hillfields in Coventry, we'll have to go in. And it just, if you're part of the community and you like get what's going on, I think you're all right. But there were certain places where it just wouldn't be safe to walk at night in certain. I've been to a party here. I recognise it. I've been to a party here. I don't know. It doesn't look that bad, does it? And I just came up with one then, didn't I? What was it? It was. Oh yeah, Hillfields in Coventry. Let's show you that. And is it going to seem that bad when you just look at it? Doesn't look that bad, does it? Tower blocks and streets, Hillfields. But you wouldn't go walking in Hillfields at night, I'll tell you that. Unless you were looking to buy some crack or, things like that. You wouldn't generally go hanging out down here. There's a school. But it's known, these places, like this area is known for being dangerous and stuff. So you wouldn't go and hang out in Hillfields. But they're just normal streets with just normal little houses on that. It's just the way we live in. But if I were to show you like the crime stats or what have you, is this a college or something? If I were to show you the crime stats and all that business, if you were to go hanging out in the primary school, isn't it? Look, it's a primary school. If you were to go hanging out in the parks by the tower blocks, it'd be a different story, wouldn't it? Hillfields in Coventry. So I put Hillfields on my list. And of course, I'd put Manchester, open brackets, Gunchester, Moss Side, and I'd put Liverpool. I mean, I don't know the worst area in Liverpool, but I know there's a lot of dangerous crime there. But I could also put that about like Rotherham and other places that are a bit run down and you get bad areas. But that's my sort of list. It's not a big list. It's not a conclusive list. And I don't really want to go slagging these places off. So because there's a lot of good places and all. And what's brilliant about these places, like this is a part of Coventry, and the people that live there are probably good people. Like, there's probably a few bad eggs, aren't there? Like selling crack and doing what have you. But the people are good people. In general, I'm not saying go and hang out in Hillfields and it'll be fine, but in general, like you get good people everywhere and bad people everywhere, and this is just a little like a place to live with little shops. Like it's just a normal street, isn't it? Look, little chicken shop, tower blocks. What's this fella doing on the corner? It's just a normal little place to live, isn't it? Just has a lot of crime, poverty, problems, drugs, prostitution, all that. I had another one pop into my head then as well that I wanted to show you. And it's popped out of my head again, so. These are my worst places in England. I'll show you Aston, I'll show you tell you a funny story about getting run off from a shop. And so again, you wouldn't want to. This is one of these places, Lascelles and East Handsworth, and Aston. You wouldn't want to hang out here as a stranger, just chatting to strangers, because people might say, "Who are you? And what are you doing? Not being from our area," so to speak. That sort of goes on around. These are drug gang areas now. Like not even pulling any punches. You get drug gangs control these areas. I've been up these tower blocks. Don't know which one. Been up a tower block in my day. Meeting people, doing little bits of business. For me personally, so that I could, smoke my favourite cigarettes. But this, you wouldn't. It's look. There's a kid, parents. They live there, little houses, little council flats. But you and I wouldn't spend our time just hanging in this little park. Someone would come and ask you what you're doing. Honestly, someone would come and ask you what we're doing. Up here, I'm trying to find the place where Letitia Shakespeare was shot. That's the police, obviously. There was a shooting outside a hairdresser's on New Year's Eve, and I wasn't there on New Year's Eve, but about a year and a half later, I was at the local, because I have cause to be round here sometimes, and I was at a local shop up here. I mean, I've been up a road like this, and I've seen a guy. I'll tell you a true story about this street. Just a street like this, just near Aston, and there's a guy. I was like driving. He wouldn't get out of the way of the road. Like, he was in the road with his shirt off, like fully giving it, like sweating and steaming, and like, I was like, all right, mate, I'll go around you. You just park up in one of these little streets, go on a little walk around Aston, have some fun. But I bought a sandwich from a shop. Where is it? The tower blocks up here. I bought a sandwich from a shop, and I was just hanging on the corner eating my sandwich with my mate, and then these three like serious young lads, younger than me, but like more serious. They came over and they had all the jewelry, and one of them had the grill. They were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" Like, these towers don't seem that imposing, do they? And it's not America, but like, this is high crime area, I'd suppose. High crime area. Trying to take us to Lazelle's. There's a particular. This is Lazelle's and Handsworth. That's the city centre. So I'd come through. And where is. See, all of this. I'll show you another place in a second, but I want to show you also where the nicest part is. Because there's a road that you go down. At one end of the road, you're at like the really nice place, and at the other end of the road, you're at not such a nice place. Can't get into my head. Edgbaston, that's it. That's what I'm thinking of. So it must be Edgbaston. Must be a road down here that leads to. Where am I thinking? Let me just drop us in at Edgbaston, I'll show you, because Edgbaston's just up here. Look, it's where they got the cricket ground and stuff. I mean, look at it straight away. That's a day nursery, but like, just immediately, just up the road, Edgbaston is this, much more wealthy and established area of older buildings, wider streets, walls and gardens, security. Just down the road from the dangerous areas. So I'm not going to find that one particular place where I was standing on the corner, but it was somewhere like. I always like to think I'm walking down this way, but I get my directions wrong because I'm terrible. So let me just drop us up on here. Yeah, it must have looked a bit like this. Let's say it looked a bit like this. It wasn't. It was a particular one, but. Me and my mate were just on the court, and these lads came up to us, and they were like, "What are you doing in our area?" Like, and they didn't say it in those words. They said it in the sort of, street lingo of the day. "What are you doing in our area?" I said, "I've come to get a sandwich," because what I'd actually come to do was, to do naughty things in the area. I didn't want to say that, did I? Waiting to see a man about a dog. So I'd just gone there, and I was like, waiting to see a man about a dog. So I said, "I'm just waiting for my friend." And they said, "Who's your friend?" And I'm not going to, at this point, the conversation's over as far as I'm concerned. And they started getting irate. And then I didn't really, I said, are you angry? I said this to them, "Are you angry? Are you trying to be cross and aggressive here? Or are you being friendly?" Because I can't, from what you're saying, I can't catch the vibe. And they were like, no, we're definitely not being friendly. And I caught them, saying that. So me and my mate, we'd parked our car just like literally, we're at those shops and our cars just say like round that corner. And so like this girl came walking up the street with a charity thing, sign up to charity, do you want to do charity? And like she could see us having this argument. She was clearly a bit more, I don't know, like clued up or whatever. Anyway, bottom line is she came in and interjected. She said, lads, do you want to sign up to this charity? And the minute they were distracted, we ran. We legged it, me and my mate. And we got in the car and just burned off because, Jesus, what were we doing? Hanging around, waiting for trouble. That sort of stuff can go on, right? That sort of stuff can go on just down the road. And then over the other way of the road, you've got like, you can just go up another road and you've got all, development and money and... It's weird, isn't it, the way cities are? But that's everywhere in the UK. Everywhere in the UK. It doesn't necessarily mean that anywhere is rubbish and anywhere else is good. It means you've got deprived areas next door to more affluent areas, that's all. And we all kind of live close to everything, in a way. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. Yeah, we haven't got into the 10 worst places yet. Just having a little look around, aren't we? Just having a little look around. It's for the American friends that watch our channel. The Jewellery Quarter is a nice place, you see. Nice up and coming place, the Jewellery Quarter. Yeah. Oh look, there's another bookies. Got a lot of them in the UK. But this is what I mean. This is like, look at it. Rundown, bookies, to let. Nice old buildings, but run down, and it's just like a mile down the road from a place in Birmingham that you'd get £1 million properties and like renovations. And I mean, look at, as soon as you start running down this, look at the size of these buildings now, these big Georgian buildings. Suddenly you're out in a different world, aren't you? Look how they keep the park nice. It's only across the way from the tower blocks, but funny that about the way our world works, isn't it? Okay. And there's one more place in Birmingham I wanted to show you, which is a place that's dear to my heart, and it's Small Heath. Because my Birmingham Football Club, this is where there's the football club. Oosh, what's that? Little council houses. Where's the football club? I just dropped us on it, didn't I? You chuffer. The football club. Please. I should be able to see it from any direction from here. These are just little normal houses. Where's the football club? There it is, up there. There's the football club. There's the football ground. Oh, I can't get over there. You chuffer. Let me over there. Weird, isn't it? It won't let you go right up to the football ground and have a look. It's going to do my head in, this is. Morrison's, right. I know where I am because Morrison's. I know exactly where I am if I go to Morrison's. Being, where's the Morrison's? Why are they blurring it out? Right, you go up here. You can see it. You can see it as you approach. You should be able to see it. They've got all walls. Look, walls. You see it as you approach. Oh, look at it. The big stadium with the big blue. It's run down now, the stadium is. It's really run down. It's got a big crack in it. It needs doing up. But this is a big, part of my life. The Birmingham City Football Club Stadium there, St Andrews. That's what it looks like on a rainy day. Like today's a rainy day. Grey clouds. Don't look that impressive from the exterior. This should be done up proper. This should all be done up proper. A lot of investment should be made here. You could have... There was talk of having a casino. I'm not big on gambling. In fact, I'm against gambling. But it should all be done up proper, shouldn't it? It should all be really done up proper. Big investment opportunity there. Local stadium. And you've got your shops. And then what I wanted to show you was where we go when you come here. So this is the Coventry Road. So you've got your main big shops and your built up area, and then you just come down here and you'll start to see it change, and you'll start to see a lot more Asian. Again, it's an immigrant community that's settled in an area, and you'll see a lot more. What am I trying to say? Like Islamic and Asian culture, essentially, which is cool. So this is the Coventry Road, and it doesn't look all done up, does it? It doesn't look all done up. Cool as it is, whilst the money is starting to, develop this area from the people that have worked there for years, it's still got some impoverished areas, I'd say. You've got more of your Asian supermarkets here. I know there's a place here, there's a snooker club as well, isn't there? This guy's selling something from... this guy's just got a table up an alleyway, look. I'll switch from big face to web browsing so you get more of a view. There's the snooker club there. And I want to show you the pub that we go to on match days. There's different pubs that you go to depending on which way you come to the ground. But just up here is the Brighton Arms. If I can find it. That's the Al Halal supermarket. We go in there and get our chilies and stuff on the way back on certain days if it's open. There's another Bookies. On the other side of the road, you just got normal houses, look, and streets that go up to normal houses, another shops. Just want to show you my favourite pub if I can find it. It should be down this road. The Brighton Arms is one of these. On a match day, it's funny this is, on a match day, like it's obviously in, an Asian area, isn't it? But on a match day, it's absolutely full of Birmingham City fans who cross all cultural boundaries, but are mainly from the Irish white part of Birmingham, and they flood through this area. And it's quite a funny, it's not a culture clash, we're all part of the same Birmingham culture, but it's quite funny to see it. Yeah, I know where we are. We should just be down here. It's a little bit more of a walk than it feels like when you're actually walking it. But we usually park the car up down one of these roads, down one of these side streets up here, and just go for a walk up that road. The Brighton Arms is down here. God, it's a bit of a walk, isn't it, when you think about it? Maybe we've gone past it. Although I recognise all these places, so I feel like I walk past them. And this is not the worst part of Birmingham by any means. Not the worst part of Birmingham by any means. Like, it just looks a bit run down, doesn't it? There's Cake Box. I recognise Cake Box. Let me find the Brighton Arms for you. There we are. Is that it now? Is it changed into a restaurant? No, it can't have. It's just there on the corner, isn't it? It's weird, isn't it? Because I recognise it as being just down here on this corner. But you've got the supermarket, and it says it's here. Didn't it? It said it was here on this. It said it was there. Why can't I see it? I hope I haven't closed down. It might be that restaurant, It might have been turned into that restaurant. Anyway, the pub we always used to... It has, hasn't it? The pub we always used to drink at is just down this road anyway. We all go in a pub and we all get drunk and then we go up the football. Lovely Birmingham. So it's not even a bad place. It's not even like a worse part, worst parts of England. But it just shows you, doesn't it, that just like cheek by jowl, we all live in a sort of normal area that could be described by some people as being rough or, they feel less comfortable there. But in other ways, it's just a normal place that we all live. Like, just a normal place. And it's right next to all the nice places as well, in a way. Right then, I've done enough of my talking. Let's have a look at what they're saying. And I was 8-minute video, supposed to be doing the worst place. I've done an hour. I haven't even got into it yet. I'm such a chuffer.
10 worst places to live in England. England prides itself as the best of the 4 constituent countries making up the UK.
Right, I'm going to stop you right there. England prides itself on being the best. What are you talking about, the best? You can't judge quality of country by best, worst, in between, can you? There's no best or worst. That's just totally just weird. What are we going to be judging it by? GDP or happiness or population or number of scientific discoveries? What we've given to the world? I don't know what we're judging it by, but I don't, as a person who lives in England, have a personal political feeling about which country is the best, and nor do we, as a group of Englanders, the English, have any sort of, we don't have a questionnaire that goes around once a year to say who's the best country. He's just made that up. I'm just surprised he's just gone straight in there with that, actually. I'm surprised he's just gone straight in there with that. Because it's like nationalist propaganda.
Granted, England is the home of London, the capital of the kingdom. Nevertheless, it's not everywhere in England that you'd love to live, and things may not be as good as they appear in pictures.
Now, I've just shown you that, haven't I? Like, it's not nice everywhere, but this is another great example. This is clearly a Cotswolds village. I'm saying that because of the yellow stone that I can see around. And again, I want to show you somewhere in England that's just down the road from me. That's just down the road from me. If you just chuff in. Let's just have a look at this. This is just a little village, right? You see here it says Aston Martin, Lagonda, Jaguar, Land Rover, Gaydon. Right just here, the British Motor Museum. You've got a lovely place called Gaydon and the Kyneton Road and these places. And it's just pure, look, like countryside, look. Pure countryside with the odd little house spotted in. Lovely, picturesque part of the world. And round here, if you're going to live in one of these places...
You write born to kill on your helmet and you wear a peace button. Was that supposed to be some kind of sick joke?
I think I was trying to suggest something about the duality of man, sir.
I've been missing the chat. You lovely chatters. Look, you've been there chatting and I've been missing it, you choppers. I can see it now. Thank you very much for my tippies. I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. Look at that countryside. Everyone in England, yeah, lovely stone cottage. Yeah, it's not, well, some of these places are, this is round near where I live in the countryside. I just want to show you some of the nice houses around here if I can find any of them. Harbury, this is a nice village. Look, Harbury. Lovely little village houses, look. Lovely little village, isn't it? Oh, look at that little stone cottage. You'll get them. You'll get round in these places some lovely little old village stuff, yeah. But in the same look at that, lovely. In the same token though, just down the road in every one of these little villages, and the reason I picked Lighthorn just a minute ago, which I'm going to go back to, is because just down the road in some of these villages, they also put little council estates, and there's nothing wrong with being, in a council estate, living in a council, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that at all. These are free houses that you get given by the government if you can't afford a house, essentially. So just down the road in every little village, you'll get a little council estate. Now, the difference is that these are not picturesque little stone cottages. They are, like I said, to house people who are at the low end of society who need social housing. So that doesn't mean as a prerequisite that you behave badly, but there are some people who behave badly, and there are some people who've are in that poverty end of the scale. It makes it more difficult to worry about certain aspects of life, like how you're behaving in certain ways. I don't know, you get some drug addicts and some alcoholics, what have you. There are some stories that go on, like I was just saying about my local town where Shakespeare lived, but you also get kicked to death sometimes. Like, not me, but some people might have. I've known some people have some pretty horrific stories about their lives living in a little council estate in a village. It doesn't mean just because you live in a picturesque village. Look, this is Lighthorn Heath, so that's that little council estate bit with like some of the horror stories of things that I've heard about people living in poverty. Children not being fed properly. I'm not going to get too heavy on you now, but the sort of abuses that happen to children who live in poverty sometimes have happened in these places. I've been told legitimately by people who bear witness to these things, but that is just a little village. It's just a little beautiful village. There's the main road out in the middle of nowhere. and that's Lighthorn Heath. Lighthorn itself, the main part of the village, because you didn't want to build your council estate right next to your main part of your village. Lighthorn itself has got, look, beautiful, picturesque, yellow stone. That's your little bus stop. Like Lighthorn itself, there's your little pub. Lighthorn's very picturesque and beautiful. You're not going to get to do any building in Lighthorn because, you know, listed countryside, beautiful cottages. They're really expensive, I'll have you know. You know, you're not picking one of those up for less than $500,000. My guess. These little picturesque beauty. Some of these are like second homes for people in the countryside. Some of them are people who lived in the village all their life, I would warrant. But beautiful little village. And then if you want to just go down the road, you can buy some heroin and literally, you know, you can buy some heroin down here and have people, you know, at the worst end of the poverty scale, suffering. That's not to say that all the people that live in these houses are horrible people that do heroin. There's some very nice people that live in council houses and, you know, work very hard and nice people. So that's not, you know, it's not to say that everyone around here is horrible, but I know for a fact, because I've known someone who lived here who suffered when they were a kid. So, you know, that goes on as well. Just all next to each other. Where's the little cottage in the hillside that needs to go on chickens? I'll show you another village that's nice, that I grew up around. This little village should probably count, like you were saying. This is the entrance to the village. That building there is an old church, been renovated into a house. This is the main road in the village, and it is a main road, but like it goes through the village, so to speak. This is where I went to school and grew up, down this little village. These are little, in exactly the same way. Some of these houses are former council houses or actual still council houses there might be, but I think they're former council houses now, just on the edge of the village there. But this is the local church where my grandfather and my nan are buried. And, you know, you want your little cottage with your little chickens and things like that. Just live in a little village like this, and you've got little cottages like this all the way along. Little stone, you know, little freeholdings with little chickens down here. There's a fella who actually sells eggs. Again, you've got council houses stuck in there for people who can't afford, but also houses that cost you like £500,000 just up here for people that can. There's a little, I'm sure there's a little chicken and eggs thing here. Look, there's one. See that little box? I'm sure there's chickens involved there or something. Down here. This is the side road, bear in mind, it's a very little thin side road, but little houses, little gates, that's the sort of thing you're looking for, isn't it? Little gates. Lovely. And if you want to drop into the main strip, the main street, in the middle of town, this is just a village, you know, it's just a little village. You have still got a little shop, a little school, and more normal houses where people like me lived when we were growing up. Lovely little picturesque village, isn't it? Nice living. Yep. So yeah, you totally get that. That is just up the road from where I live. Oh, I clicked Ettington for some reason. You follow this Banbury Road up and you get to Stratford. It's the next town along. So that's taking us up the same road now, just, you know, much further along, about 15 minutes along. And this is Stratford upon Avon where I live, you know, in these sort of houses. We driving down the road into town. Or out of town? I don't know. my geography's awful. Into town, I believe. Into town. This should get more urbanised as we approach. Nice townhouses, aren't they? Look, nice, expensive houses. And we should approach Stratford from this side, please. Eventually. God, it takes a while on Google Maps, doesn't it? It's a lot quicker when you're driving it, I'll tell you that. There we go. We're up to town now. There's the garage if you want to get your petrol. Here's the island. We're up to Stratford town. And just before you get to town, there's a lovely big hotel. Expensive. Go on, get me up there. There's the river. Lovely Stratford butterfly farm. Over this bridge. There's the river. It's nice, isn't it? That's the theatre up there, and you're into this lovely town. So I'm lucky we live in this lovely, lovely place. I wonder if you get a good view of it up here. You know, you can sit by the river and you can have your drinks and you can be in the town and it's lovely. Yeah. Let's bin that off and let's have a look at the worst places to live. Now, what I was just showing you there was he just said, like, England, you've got picturesque villages like this. Absolutely. Absolutely. But within these picturesque villages, you've got council estates and people who are at the end of the poverty line who are not going to be able to afford their fuel bills and their food this winter, sorry. You know, normal people like me, middle range of society who just like are normal, and you've got very, very wealthy people as well. You'll go in your local pub in a place like this, your local pub, and you'll get like local farmers who are actually very wealthy, and you'll get local people who are actually not, and you know, all drinking together and whatever. It's you can't just pick it and say it looks like a chocolate box cover, so it's lovely England, because it's about what goes on, the people and how they behave, isn't it?
There are terrible places as well in England. Cultures in certain places may shock you while you're still dazed in disbelief about the obnoxious attitude of some people. Here we
I'm just going to big face because I just had my little thing again. Now, how can we say this is anxiety? I just had my thing again in my chest. For a minute there, it felt as if it's like inflating pressure is the only way I can describe it, or a blockage maybe. But it just felt as if I could feel like, you know, when you hold your breath and you go, and you can feel the pressure building in your head. Yeah? It just felt as if I was feeling a little bit of pressure there. And I'm not anxious, am I? It made me anxious. I felt the anxiety click in. And I went to sort of breathe out, like get control. I'm in control. I'm not anxious. And I don't feel the pressure anymore. But I did then. It's weird that. I'm going to keep noting it because I don't believe that. I went to the doctors and they said it's anxiety. I don't know if it might be a stress. It might be because of the way I'm holding the mouse over here. You know, it might be something to do with carpal tunnel, those sort of, you know, muscle movement. It might be a muscle in my chest. I don't know. But I don't know if I feel anxious. I think you could agree here. I'm not in an anxious position, so I don't know why I would suddenly have an anxiety response.
present for your consideration the 10 worst places to live in England. Oh,
is that Warwick? That looks like one of the places round by me, or that could be Bath.
quick one here. The listing here represents my personal opinion, formed out of my own careful research.
And the other thing is, this fella, I'm not dissing him, but he sounds quite posh, doesn't he? You know, he sounds like he's had a decent education at least, and it doesn't sound like he's from the wrong side of the tracks, so to speak. So is his opinion going to be tainted by that? Has he lived this life? Does he know what he's talking about? Where is good and where is bad to live? Like I said, I've lived in one of the worst places in Bristol. I'm not unfortunate to have had to, suffer the worst poverties and the knock-on effects from that. But at least I've, been there and been amongst it for a bit and seen it. I showed you where we were going to the football, didn't I? I also showed you the lovely town I'm from. So, I get to see a bit of both worlds. But I certainly don't live in a mansion and have the ability to look down on anyone, nor would I want to, but I don't even have the ability to, should I? But,
Visits and inputs from friends and acquaintances with first-hand information about these places in England. 10. Middlesbrough.
Oh my god! I can't believe he's doing this. What an awful this has got 3 million videos. These people run YouTube learning canteen. They're better than me. They know how to do a YouTube video. But Middlesbrough, you can't just go in with Middlesbrough. That's too vague. Look, let me show you on the map. Middlesbrough, you idiot. I mean, it's a big city. Middlesbrough there. It's got an Institute of Modern Art. Look, there's Newcastle up on the north, there above it. That's a big place. They've got a football club, big place, bridges and all that. Middlesbrough's similar. It's got a football club. You call it a city, probably more than a town. That's where it is in the UK. So it is in the worst place. Just dropped kilobytes then for some reason. It is in the worst place. The more northern you go, the more impoverished it is in the UK. Simply factually, the more northern you go, like in general terms, and north of Manchester, Liverpool, it's cold and it gets worse weather in general. But Middlesbrough is a big place. Look, it's a big place. Used to have a shipbuilding industry, I think I don't know. Certainly Newcastle did. There are some deprived areas. You know, I'd be able to take you to some places in Middlesbrough where you probably wouldn't want to live. But look, they've got a university hospital. I think they've got a university as well, haven't they, in Middlesbrough? They've got parks and, you know, I bet there's places around Middlesbrough where you'd be hard pushed to afford a house. This is Middlesbrough. I just dropped us in. Look. Oh, isn't it? Look, this is lovely little... That's a nice little... Only it's a bit run down, that pub. But look. This don't look so bad, does it? Just outside Middlesbrough, I suppose you'd say that is. Have a little look. Look, I mean, it's big, isn't it? Look, it's big. Let's go and have a little look at some places. Yep, this is a bit run down. This is like where I live. Got a bookies. Got your council houses. It's a bit like everywhere I just showed you, isn't it? It's a bit like that Lighthorn Heath that I just showed you, but in the middle of Middlesbrough instead. So yeah, this is a bit more working class, a bit more run down, isn't it? In ways. But in other ways, they're not that run down, are they? Look. They're kept quite nicely, these houses. I don't know if this is... Because I've just shown you Hillfields as well earlier. I don't know if in, you know, this area you get your crack dealers and your junkies, or if this is just, you know, safe to walk in. But that's... It's not awful. I'm sure I can pick out some nice parts of Middlesbrough. Just being random as well. Shopping centres, KFCs. Maybe I can't, you know, maybe I can't find some nice places in Middlesbrough. But it's just, it's a city like any other. It's not known for being dodgy, or like Manchester and Liverpool are known for their drug crime and their impoverished areas. This doesn't look too bright either, does it, I suppose? But it's not too terrible. Stoke, I would say, feels a bit like this as well, where our friend Eddie Hall, the strongman's from. But yeah, don't look too bad. Let's see what they say about it.
Middlesbrough is a town in the northeast of England, located on the River Tees. It's an industrial town on the northeast coast.
True. A little depressing. A roof over their head, no colour variety. Yeah, that is kind of what happens in council estates. You know, they're cheap builds for housing people who can't afford a house, but they're not designed to be horrible. And this will look a bit more drab because England has terrible weather. And these places are just little houses, flats, and like when the sun's out, it's not so bad. But when it's all grey and drab, it looks grey and drab because of the terrible weather. But, you know, we've got a lot of these older buildings as well, which, like, that would be a school or something, won't it? Or maybe that's the hospital. But in amongst, you know, there's a lot of character to a lot of these places. Look at the sky now. That doesn't look so bad now. I don't know. I just can't fathom Middlesbrough's why it's so walloped on the list, but maybe they'll tell us in a minute. Maybe they'll tell us. I'm sure there's some like cool places as well. But yeah, these little council houses do look a bit drab, don't they, I suppose? There's a lot of them in Middlesbrough, it seems. And a lot of the times as well, these can be former council houses, so sometimes people will have been able to buy their council house, and maybe they look like a council house, but they're privately owned. But you can tell the worst places have a lot of junk in the front garden, don't they? That's how you can tell when it's starting to get run down. But these people up here, like, I can show you around the corner from my way, the houses look just like this. So these are not, like, there's no problem here. Let's see what they're saying.
Which is definitely one of the 10 worst places. And it has a lot of reasons to fight for on this list. Consider this. Why does Middlesbrough always get bad press? Well, many people consider it the worst place to be a girl in the country. Even though the die-hard residents will explain the drawbacks and rationalise. The town that voted massively in favour of Brexit was reportedly pressured
Brexit. Oh, okay. Right, so the people aren't that nice, are they?
Into cutting about 5,000 jobs from its steel industry over the last decade. Now, would you consider the town that has the 4th highest unemployment rate in the UK a good place to live? And probably a be...
But look at these buildings. What is he trying to say?
Among the 10% jobless residents? Its idleness shoots up the violence rates as well. 9.
So Middlesbrough got a kick in there, but for having bad stats. And yeah, there's loads of places in the UK that have got bad stats, but look at these buildings. They're lovely. I mean, buildings don't make a town, it's the people. It's the people that make the town. But, you know, it don't look that run down to me in places, does it? Oldham. Now, Oldham is kind of already on my list because it's like in between Manchester and isn't it? Yeah, it's just, look there, it's just north of Manchester. So Manchester, again, we've got northern areas, northern cities. There's South London there by my face, London down there. And as you go more north from London, it gets nicer until you get to Birmingham. I live in between London and Birmingham. I live about there. About there. Don't know if you can see it there. About there. And then it's lovely where I live. Cambridge and all that, that's all nice over there. When you go north, Sheffield, steel city, steel industry, Manchester, industrial, and these places have suffered, like you said, because of during the Thatcher years, we closed down things like coal mines and steel industry, and we started becoming more of a service-based economy. So these places suffered with unemployment and problems. And Leeds and Liverpool, they're big industrial cities. Liverpool right on the docks across from Ireland, lots of drugs, lots of gun crime, like proper city centre, like proper cities, big cities. So you get the gist. There's people that live cheek by jowl. Again, you get people that are really rich that are running things. They probably don't live so close to the worst places. Let's have a little look at Warrington, for example, and these places aren't awful. But again, it's just these little council estates, isn't it? Just little council estates. But the difference here is that where in Lighthorn Heath, where I showed you, it's very similar housing. The difference here is that you've got gun gangs and crack gangs and drug gangs and stuff like that. So normal people live here and walk home and there's no problem. But if you're not from the area and you're doing something that you shouldn't, you'll get that sort of... I mean, I might be wrong about this particular lane. Maybe this is a nice one, but, there's an old fella on a bike there. But it's just that impoverished, can't afford a house, given a free house on the council housing. What would you call it in America? It would be like trailer park almost. Or, I mean, it's not. It's above a trailer park in a way, but, that sort of working class living. And these are all just nice little houses, aren't they, really? But that Moss Side, for example, Moss Side in Manchester, sorry, that's Liverpool. This was famous for being like a drug gang area, on the news a lot, that sort of thing. But you'll see it just looks like, a normal street again. But this was one of the famous ones. Like I showed you Hillfields in Coventry where you wouldn't walk around. And like you wouldn't know if you live in like low income housing, yeah. If you live on if you live on a place like you go to Manchester, you go to university, you might end up in a flat like this, just renting a flat in like a cheaper area. And you wouldn't know that if you walk down the wrong lane in Moss Side that you could get shot. Well, not there's not people on the corners with their shooters, but there are people that, serious criminals running their enterprises, in these areas, and you can go and I could probably get myself a kilo of cocaine from Moss Side. You'd be surprised, you know what I mean? Like you might run the risk of getting shot while you get it or something, but this is territory, I should say. I don't know. I don't live there, and I don't know that much. I do know from where I used to live in Bristol and the way that went down. Certain areas that you felt safer in and certain areas where you didn't, basically. But this is England. Let's see what they're saying. Because Oldham, the reason I'm saying about Moss Side is Oldham is just... it's part of Manchester in a way. I mean, they'd probably say, no, it's not. It's Oldham. It's separate. But, it's part of Manchester in a way. And it ain't that bad. Again, it's just another place. Like there's a football team in Oldham. It's got a high street. I would feel completely comfortable driving up here, parking my car and going for a walk around. I'd feel completely comfortable in Oldham. I probably... Having said that, I probably wouldn't want to... if I stayed long enough in... walking around in the dark, I'd probably be able to get myself in some trouble. But, Oldham's just like, look at it, it's just a little high street with some shops off it and part of Manchester. So I think the people of Oldham would complain at being on this list, because from what I've shown you, it's not the worst place in the world, is it? It looks like everywhere else. But it is quite impoverished.
Oldham. Oldham is another not-so-good town in the north.
No gardens for growing food. I'm laughing at that because not many people who have council houses are that worried about growing food in their gardens, to be honest. They're more worried about like, is my audio loud? No, it's all right. They're more worried. I'm not going to diss anyone, but like, you know, we're talking about people who. I was saying that. I suppose there's people down my allotments that come from council houses, so maybe not. Maybe people in council houses. There's a social thing though. Like, where's my big face? How am I trying to explain this? Many of the people that I know that are my friends from council estates or whatever, they're more interested in like sport trainers and fake nails and hair extensions and like glamorous, like, it's weird, isn't it? Like glamorizing. Like if you come from a council area, like you look at each other and so he's not got the right trainers on, for example, or you've got the cool, you know, you've got this street uniform. Do you know what I mean? Like you've got the cool tracksuit or whatever, and it's probably not. I'm probably generalising too much here. And, you know, I lived in a little rented house in a council estate when I was growing up. So, like, I've seen it, like, but I don't know how quite to explain it. I didn't suffer with poverty when I was growing up. I didn't suffer with poverty. I was very lucky my parents had money, but they went through a divorce and there was some difficult times. And a lot of my friends, you know, if you live in England, you've got friends who live in a council estate as well as you've got friends who don't, you know, simply that well, most people should. I mean, I don't know. But, I mean, because I used to do hair, for example, and a lot of the people that would come from a more working class background would actually be more concerned with making sure their hair's right and, you know, they don't want to live like a tramp, necessarily. It's weird, though, because you'd think that, you know, your hair would be the least of your worries. I don't know.
Well, you certainly won't have a hard time agreeing that this is one of the worst places even in the UK. Corroborating that, the Office of National Statistics once announced it as Britain's most deprived town. According to one resident, Oldham looks as though the government has been performing nuclear testing in the area.
No, it doesn't.
The town, with a population of 96,420, is still struggling to maintain its reputation as the centre for further education and performing arts, with some barely surviving cotton mills and other buildings associated with that industry.
But it all looked like they'd done it up there, didn't it? Like it all like it'd been renovated.
8.
So I don't know where. I mean, there are some statistics that state that Oldham will be, you know, underprivileged, what have you. But this is quite normal in this. Like, I'm surprised that got on this because it's quite normal in the UK for places to look like this, to feel like this, to be like this. You know, in terms of poverty and depravity, I get it. And in terms of what you will see in these areas, like if I zoom out from Oldham, Manchester, Rochdale, like you'll see a lot of Asian communities in these areas, that immigrant communities. There's a real straight in there, look, Irish place, because what you will see is there will be communities that originally were Irish immigrants, and as they've assimilated into society, I mean, talking, you know, post-war Irish immigration, pre and post-war Irish immigration, so that was in the 1940s. They have owned businesses, gentrified the areas, and even moved out of them. And then you get like the next wave of immigrants, be they from Asian countries or Jamaica or even these days, you know, Somalia is another wave, and they move into the more underprivileged areas and occupy those spaces. So, I mean, look, you've got your tower blocks again. Again, I would suggest that if you don't come from this area of Oldham tower blocks, it doesn't look that horrible. But I guess you probably wouldn't be, you know, it's a guess. I've not been here. I've been up similar tower blocks in different cities, and you know, this is your towers, isn't it? This is your low income housing and all the problems that are associated with that. And the reason that it's, you know, more populated by certain immigrant communities is obvious, isn't it? So, you know, you get those problems, those social problems with that, the drugs, the crime, the gangs. So that sounds bad, but I bet you if we just go up this road, because I don't know Oldham, I'm not, you know, I'm just wandering around as if I'm a tourist. I bet you any money if we just go up a couple of roads, you'll start to see affluence, and obviously not seeing it yet. It gets a bit nicer towards the town centre, doesn't it? But it's not much better. I'm just saying that I'm sure there's some nice places just next door, you know, just up the road. But this is Rotherham now, not sorry, Rochdale, not Rotherham, but or Oldham or whatever. But because it's the second generation of an immigrant, like this would have been the first wave of an immigrant community, Irish, and then they moved out and moved on, and you've got the next wave, which I think around this area, looking at it, is Talibs. I think you're looking at Islamic Asian area. You know, yeah, you've got like, you know, depravity and social problems in those aspects. But we're even just scrolling through now, we're getting to some newer housing, again, social housing. But you know, not the best, but not the worst, is it? Not the worst. There are some areas in Liverpool that have got derelict streets with no one living in them. You know, this doesn't look awful. It's about the people and what goes on there, though, I suppose, isn't it? It's about the people and what goes on there. I just wanted to show you that, like, and Bolton's just up the road there, isn't it? Bolton's a, you know, there's a lot of pride in Bolton. There's a skate park. You know, a lot of pride about the quality of the people and the place. A lot of pride in Bolton. So these northern places, Rochdale and Bolton, you know, you get decent, honest, good people from there. I don't know, you know, it's on the list of these 10 worst places. Let's go.
As the centre for further education and performing arts, with some barely surviving cotton mills and other buildings associated with that industry. 8.
I think one of the problems here as well is hearing that accent, hearing that accent downgrading somewhere like. I mean, I wonder where this chap lives and where he's grown up and what qualifies him and his opinion. It feels a bit wrong, doesn't it, in a way?
Stevenage. A life
Sunset over Stevenage. Sunset over Stevenage. Check this out. Proper original jungle this is the B-side to the Two Bad Mice remix of the helicopter tune, which everyone goes on about and loves. This is the B-side, Sunset over Stevenage. So there's some learning for you. But Stevenage on this list, no, aren't we? Stevenage.
Lacking civility, respect.
It's just a borough of London, isn't it? It's not even. I said there would be some bad boroughs, but it's not even a. Like, this isn't known for being a bad. Is it not in London? Yeah, it's North London. Look. It's a borough north of London. It's not a London borough, really. Not really. No, I'm wrong actually in saying that. It's north of London. It's more near Luton, and I can see why you could put. You know that. I told you the other day, the poem "Come Friendly Bombs and Fall on Slough, It Isn't Fit for Humans Now, Reign Over Death." The areas that are surrounding London, I've got to make sure you can see this. Let's go web browser. London, obviously, you know, it's a big city. It's got good and bad. You know what London's doing. Reading. That's where the office was set. Reading. Similar to Milton Keynes, Bedford, North, you know, Cambridge, university town, lovely, but Milton Keynes, Reading, Slough, London, these places, Swindon, they're outskirts of the big city. So you put like a call centre or an office building, and it's not that pretty and it's not that nice. And these places have got that dour reputation. They service London. You can get a cheaper house. You don't have to live in. You get cheaper out in the sticks, isn't it? So like Luton, for example, that image there in the top left says it all, doesn't it? The terraced housing. Where's my browser? Come on, you chuffer. Call this terraced housing, where it's just like a row of houses all next to each other without any gaps between them. Like they're all one. It's like one building essentially. It's a big row of houses that's all stuck together. That would be, they'd build loads of houses like that, and then you'd have a mill or a factory, and the workers would live in these little houses and go and work in the mills or factories. And that's why they were dissing the previous one, wasn't it? Oldham, for having disused cotton mills. And often what's happened in our country is that places like that have become disused, underprivileged, what have you, because I said Margaret Thatcher, she closed down the manufacturing industries and opened up the social mobility of education, leading you into a service-based industry. So now you can't work in a factory because there isn't a factory. So now you've just got crappy houses and no industry. So what you do, you just slip into poverty, which is why they've opened up things like call centres and what have you, offices. The office is set in a place like Slough, Reading, industrial parks. Do you know what I'm talking about? Industrial parks and offices. People don't seem to think there's much to that. I mean, if you come from Ukraine and you have places being blown up, if you come from Syria and it's all been blown up, or you're from Eritrea and you haven't got any infrastructure, and then you come here and you've got roads and schools and offices, and it's not actually that bad, is it? It's not actually that bad, but it's on the list here as being like, rubbish, isn't it? Worst places to live in England, look. But again, you'll be surprised at this. Looks just like everywhere else. In fact, this looks a lot nicer in Luton, look, doesn't it? These houses, they're not the little box council houses. They're slightly nicer. So it doesn't look that horrible. It's just normal England. See what he's saying?
Respect and prospects is in order in Stevenage, one of the 10 worst places to live in England. The new town in North Hertfordshire, which is a part of London's commuter belt, is not one filled with happy people.
So being a new town, what they're talking about is being a new town. Milton Keynes. I want to show you Milton Keynes. Come on, use your brain. Yeah, Milton Keynes here. What they did was, in the 70s, they decided to build these new towns. And literally, you'll notice that Milton Keynes is different. Look, it's on a grid. Can you see that? It's all like on a grid system. Rough grid. In America, you've got all these grids. Are there family farms? Yeah. Yeah, there are family farms, yeah. Definitely. You've got all these grids in America because it was built more modern, so you had like more modern ideas about what to do. But in the UK, most places are not built modern. Like Northampton here, there's no semblance of a grid here. It's just higgledy-piggledy. You've got a town centre and roads leading to and from it in a sort of abstract-ish spider web sort of pattern. You'll see the same with most places. Rugby there's the middle and the big roads go in and out, but there's no grid. Coventry, up near where I live, you've got a ring road around the centre. A ring road, so everyone can drive around in a big middle, and a ring road on the outer skirts. Big circle, but roughly it's just built around the town centre and it's built up roughly. Whereas the new places, it made sense to put a grid in, didn't it? And they wanted to build new places near London so people could travel into London to work. And there's London. So just north of London, you've got these places that are more modern built, Milton Keynes, a bit more stale maybe. You can see the industrial buildings above me, a bit more less character and more functional, but doesn't mean they're bad, does it?
Residents merely get by with a certain bland and tasteless lifestyle they consider boring, grey, uneducated and unwelcoming. They're simply fed up with their homes, and that explains why Stevenage has been for too long given a bad name throughout Hertfordshire. However, the fantastic transport link it has to London fills it with the overspill from London, and this means more residents and more housing needs. Services are becoming consequently very strained. Unfortunately, that higher demand raises prices, including accommodation costs here. While we decry the lack of love in this town, there's one more negative side about Stevenage. It tops the teen pregnancy rate in the Hertfordshire statistics.
In the Hertfordshire statistics, so, that's a bit of a reach as well, because look at Hertfordshire. Like, you're only looking at these, like, there's not many places to top the statistics, are there? Looking at rural areas and new towns. So, of course, it tops the statistics. Stevenage, of course, it tops the statistics, because around this area, you've only got competition from Luton, Bedford. That'd be in Bedfordshire. So, of course, it tops the statistics. It's the main place. And look, it's on a main road into London. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I don't know why they picked that. It's not known for crime. It's not known for, problems. It's on a main road into London. That pushes the prices up. Look at it. It's not as drab and grey as he said. It's got all these lovely houses. Bit of character. Yeah, it's one of those new towns. Yeah, you can feel a bit... there's a place called Grays as well. There's a place called Grays that you can feel a bit... Am I tripping? No, here it is. Look, south of London. You can feel a bit the same about these sort of places in a way. But they are quite lovely. But it's boring compared to London. You're in a little suburban area. And little suburban areas equate to shopping centres and little, standard sort of Shearwater here. This is there's a big shopping centre in Shearwater and a lot of little houses. Standard sort of living. But it's not horrible. Like, if you're coming from a war zone, it's not a worse place to live.
7. Blackpool.
Oh, Blackpool.
The case of Blackpool, a resort town in Lancashire located in northwestern England and on the Irish Sea, is more than a town having fairly good and bad areas. It's among the worst places to live in England. Though famous for its tower...
It feels like he's got some sort of stats in a news article. He's got a news article, he's just picking them out of that. Because Blackpool, again, he's missed the trick here. Blackpool is a former best place to live, basically. It's on the coast, and it was designed at a time of prosperity. Or designed, all the places in England have been around for a long time. But during prosperous times, they said, why don't people come to the seaside and have a nice time? If you live in Manchester, Blackburn, these sort of places, if you live in those sort of places, Manchester and Blackburn, look, Liverpool, they're those rough cities that I described where they've got the crime and the inner cities and the, all that. But, they were powerhouses of industry, and the people that live there earning their little bit of money, you want your little seaside holiday, don't you? You want your little seaside holiday if you're working class or anywhere on the way up. So Blackpool, the pleasure beach was built. And look, it's right on the sea. That's concrete car park. It's not what I'm looking for. I wanted to see the sea. I've dropped us into the most pretty place in Blackpool, of course. I mean, look at it. It's a picturesque seaside town, look. It's a picturesque seaside town. Now, that might mean it's boring, and if you're young... What the hell am I looking at there? I'm inside a hotel now. Chuffers. If you're young, you're going to say, I'm bored, I'm fed up, I'd rather be in Manchester up the road. The clubs here are rubbish. The bars here are boring. Because there's a lot of retired people that live in places like Blackpool now. A lot of retired people. You'll check out this, the Imperial Hotel and Ballroom. This looks really run down, doesn't it? Looks really run down, but you'll be on the seafront in just a second. This is like Brighton, although Brighton's a bit better because it's southern England, so it's got higher affluent land value prices and all that, and better weather. But look, we're just on the seafront here. Okay, we're on the northern edge. Okay, we're on the northwestern edge of England, so it's not always nice weather. You know, it's like seafront rather than beachfront. But this is, you know, this is pretty and picturesque. And it was at one time a very affluent, look, the old Imperial Hotel, this would be the best example. Weston-super-Mare is a lot like this as well. And there's lots of places like this around the UK, on the coast. At one point, England was an imperial powerhouse. You know, we had an empire. And the hangover from that was that we had affluent people, you know, the mills and the factories and the shipyards and all that. It wasn't just that you had poor people working class people working there. You also had the rich people who owned it. You know, we were an imperial powerhouse at one point. And so these places like Blackpool were set up during a time of more affluence. And okay, it's a hangover now that people don't want to come and party at the Imperial Hotel anymore, do they? It's falling into disrepair, isn't it? But, you know, it's still a nice hotel on a nice seafront. This is one of the worst places to live in England, bearing in mind, described on this video. And yeah, you know, look, your hotels are up for sale. And it's in disrepair in a way. Turn it into little shops, offices, what have you. It's had its heyday. Pleasure Beach up the road, and famous for its illuminations, Blackpool, and its tower. It has tourist attractions, which we're going to get up the road here to see. But it's a bit of a scruffy council estate area in a way, some places around. But there isn't everywhere in Britain in a way. We're on the seafront here, look. We're on the seafront. One of the problems it has is opportunities for young people. You know, like many places that are struggling in the UK because of government investment cutting off. What happens in the UK is the government is in charge of sending money to the local council. So the local council might be Labour, but the government might be Conservative. So they cut off the local council. You're not getting any good money, and then they haven't got many good monies to spend on making the area good. And people don't realise how politics works, and they say, "Oh, this area is rubbish. I'm going to vote Conservative because around here it's Labour in the council, and they haven't made it any better. I'm going to vote Conservative." You know, they don't understand how politics works, everyone, but this is all a bit run down, just like everywhere in England at the moment, has these absent shops and places. But I can see why you put this in as, you know, this place is not that good. If you grow up in Blackpool, you probably think Blackpool's rubbish. I'm well fed up with nothing to do. I need some opportunities, some job opportunities, some life, you know, some what have you. But back in its day, back in its heyday, Blackpool, the Pleasure Beach here. And of course, you know, this has died a death, hasn't it? Because who wants to go to the pier and go on the, you know, the rides at the pier? It's no longer the hip thing, is it? Cinderella, you know, I've been here as a kid to enjoy myself. But, you know, when you're a young adult, you don't really want to go to the Blackpool Pleasure Beach and go on the rides, do you? It's a bit run down now. So it needs reinvestment, it needs redoing, and it needs some more reasons for people to, you know, invest and enjoy it. But it's got a lot of history. It's not the worst place in the world to live. Certainly not the worst place in the world to live. And it can get a bit rough. And do you remember I said that... no, there's Laser Quest. You remember I said that people were beaten to death in our local town in Stratford, which is a lovely little town? Well, I would warrant that, you know, there's an area here, and I don't know which one because I don't live in Blackpool, but there's an area around here somewhere where the local alcoholics hang out. Because there's local alcoholics everywhere, you know, and where the local drug addicts hang out. I bet the kids wanted to come and skate this area, but were kicked off by the local police or what have you. You know, it's that sort of thing going on, isn't it? But it's not the worst place to live in England. Is it? Look, it's not the worst place to live. This is the main bit, though, the Blackpool Tower here. The Tower Ballroom. The main bit. So they keep that looking nice. But I would warrant, if you were to move your way up into one of the little council estates somewhere around. Oh, it's not even that bad, is it? Look, this isn't even a little... Look. Let's say you move to here. Worst place in England, Blackpool. Just up the road from the beach and it's not a beach, it's a beachfront, you know, it's a seafront. How can anything on the seafront be run down? Yeah, it just gets, because people don't want to come here. It used to be the case that you earn your money in those big cities. You know, and I'm talking 1800s now. 1800s, early 1900s. You earn your money in Preston, you earn your money in Blackburn, and you come for your nice day out in Blackpool. You know, you have people coming and spending money. But nowadays, it doesn't have the same attraction, does it? People just go on holiday in Spain, or look, check out England. You'll love this. Check out England. Look where we are. That's France there. Look, there's Spain. Portugal. It's all really close. So nowadays, people who earn their working class wages, their normal working class wages, you know, normal people, not people right on the scruffy poverty breadline, you know, not people struggling. Well, actually, these days, if you're on normal working class wages, you are struggling, I should say. But, you know, normal people like me, like us, you earn your money in Manchester, for, you know, you work somewhere and you go on holiday. You don't go on holiday to Blackpool anymore, so the money's not flowing there. There's no money going that way anymore. It's all going this way. France, Spain, Portugal. You know, that's where the holiday money goes. Or maybe down south, Brighton, Plymouth, Torquay, you know, these nicer coastal areas around here for a nice seaside holiday. Because you can travel, it's easy to travel. Back then it was harder, you know, didn't all have your own car and all that. So Blackpool would be a lot more popular for the working classes in the north. Now it's less popular. It sort of died a death in a way. It's just the way things work, isn't it? But it's certainly not one of the worst places in the world to live, or in England to live, I would say.
Ghettos and the scummy pubs that characterise Blackpool. That's why, despite being
scummy pubs,
one of the most popular seaside resorts in the UK, the number of visitors continues to drop. If you're thinking about living in the UK, this is one of the...
He said that the numbers drop because it's got scummy pubs, but it's not. It's not. It's got scummy pubs because there's no longer any money going into it, so they end up scummy. But it's not scummy, and it's not dropped in that way. It's dropped because of other social factors that I just explained, you know?
Worst places to contemplate, even though it has a zoo, a model village and gardens, and the...
It's got a zoo, a model village and gardens, so you can chuff off worse places to live, you pretentious bastard.
Sandcastle Water Park. 6. Gravesend.
Gravesend. Now, I've never heard of Gravesend in this context, so I'm really interested to see why he's going to pick on Gravesend next. Bear in mind, look, Moss Side in Manchester, yeah? If I went up to Moss Side in Manchester and spent, like, 2 hours wandering around, I could either come back with, like, an ounce of cocaine or a shotgun to the head. Like, there are some places around here that you would not, and they just look like normal places, I guess, so I don't know which part of Moss Side is the roughest bit. Darren G's always going on about Liverpool L5 alive, choose a life, not a knife, isn't he? Let's have a look at that. L5 Liverpool. Like, there are some places around here that you get yourself run off. And it just looks, again, like normal little... So it's hard to say, you know, just the way it looks, but you can actually see some of that. Look, here, you've got an empty derelict building, look. Boarded up, derelict. Off licence. That's where you buy your booze. That's open. Everything else is boarded. Local pub, estate pub. Like, you remember I showed you at the very start, my estate pub? That's an estate pub there, proper one. I couldn't walk in there and just be like, right, lads, how's it going? What's going on? There would be, honestly, because I know my way around this country and where I can and can't. If I went in there and was just like the way I talk, like this, all right, lads, how's it going? What's going on? Can I have a bottle of Coca-Cola? There'd be some funny looks. It'd be like one of those. I might even, you know, people on the phone, who's this lad? Where's he from? Excuse us, mate, what are you doing here? You know, people wouldn't be afraid to ask me. This is where you've got drug gangs and high crime areas, shootings, stabbings. You know, you can tell this place, they haven't got a window, you see. They've just got a thing on the side of the wall. And everything's shuttered up and boarded because they, you know, you can tell, sometimes you can tell by the way the shops protect their newsagent shops, how impoverished and run down, and, you know, what sort of violence goes on in an area. You know what I'm saying, don't you? And this thing about rubbish in the streets, it starts to become an indicator of, in my opinion, of behaviour, because people don't care about their areas. They just dump things in the streets, and that comes with poverty, doesn't it? And it comes with lack of education and opportunities. And then you've got these terrorists, you know, these might or might not be council houses. They might be former council houses. But again, look at this street. It's all just the same little box crammed in one after the other, because this would have been cheap housing for people that worked in factories, etc. back in the day. And now the factories are gone. You know, now the shipbuilding industry, the port, the docks, that's all gone from Liverpool in many ways. And you're left with these tightly packed streets. They don't look awful. They don't look awful, do they? They don't look awful. But we're in one of the rougher areas in the UK. And if you park your car up here and went for a wander, certainly you with your American accent as well, you know, you'd be mugged. I think. Not even... It's hard to explain it. You wouldn't be mugged necessarily. Look, this one's got... You can tell, can't you? Look. There was some... Look at the proper gates on that. No one's walking through there if they're not invited, are they? Proper security. It's hard to explain. I mean, you probably wouldn't... Someone probably wouldn't come up and you and just rob you, but people would question you as to why you're in their area and you don't belong in their area. Honestly, because you'd have a, like... You know, one of these places is the place that not just the local drug addicts hang out, but the local dealers would hang out. And they're the people that really run these areas. Certainly I know this about certain areas in Liverpool, certain areas in Birmingham, certain areas in, you know, certain areas in big cities. Every big city has, you know, certain areas that are more like this, don't they? So this is what I would put in my, you know, you don't want to live there places, because you got moved in there and you start going for your little wander and people say, what are you doing? You're not from around here. You know, you start having your conversations, things start to get, you know... But they do look like nice little houses, don't they? What you also see, and I'm surprised we haven't seen a lot of this yet, is you'll see national flags, not of Eritrea or Poland or, you know, not of other nationalities, but of the UK, Britain, English flags, as like statements of like, you know, this is still our area, because there'll be a lot of, you know, immigration again. Now, look, football flags in the windows on the houses. This is by the football ground up here somewhere. You know, the things that are important to working class people. Important to me. My parents are working class. I feel quite comfortable here as well. Like I said, I wouldn't let you out of the car to go for a wander here, you know, just in fear of what would happen to you. At the same time, I would go for a wander here and not worry about what was going to happen to me. But at the same time, I would worry about what was going to happen to me. You know, like I said, when people came over to me, I'd go into, like I said, I would go into this pub. Yeah? I'd go in there and have a drink, see what went on, and things might go bad. But I'd got enough street smarts about me to know when it's going bad and who's asking what and why. But I wouldn't advise you do it. You know, these are some of the more dangerous areas where people have guns. You see a lot more boarded up, you know, a lot more empty boarded up properties, don't you? Some people, obviously, are still nice people. And just because you live in poverty, because you haven't had the best opportunities in life and, you know, the best education, what have you, because the people around you have led you down the wrong path and you ended up in crime and what have you. It doesn't matter. Like, some of these people are really nice people who care for their community and care for their people. And, you know, some of these people are good-natured, honest people, immigrants of all sorts from all places. None of that matters. Some of these people are really good people. But it's just simply a fact that when you end up in your most impoverished areas and crime and, you know, drugs run the, you know, crime and drugs run the area in certain contexts, drug gangs, when they're, you know, prevalent in these areas, it becomes a problem, and it's just something you can't avoid in a way. I don't know. That's the UK. You got your bookies, you got your pub, you got your rundown shops. So there's another area. Let's see what it's saying about Gravesend.
This is another very bad place to live in.
Gravesend. Now, I want to show you somewhere where I've been in a fight before, because Gravesend. We'll have a look at Gravesend. Where is Gravesend? It's off London. It's chuff off. I want to swear now. Fuck off. How can it be like there and you're saying that's bad? It's near Rochester and The Isle of Sheppey. I mean, look at this. It's near Grays. I said Grays, didn't I, earlier? It's near Grays. It'll be boring. It'll be industrial. You'll have, like, an immigrant community, probably of Asian nationality at this time in the world. Turkish charcoal grill there. Cash converters, look. You know, you got a cash converters. That's where you can pawn your items. Yeah, look, it looks a bit run down, but only the same as where I come from, near Birmingham. Only the same as anywhere else in the UK. This ain't like, look, these are the shops. Look, normal people, normal shops. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're born in this area and you grow up in Gravesend, you're like, this is a shithole with no ambition. It's run down because the government are not giving the councils the money to, you know, do up these places and keep them looking nice. It's been through years of recession. Shops have opened, shops have closed. You've got your run-down, rubbishy shops. Yeah, I get it. You've got your Tesco's and your big, you know, who can afford to have a big shop on the high street. There's your England flags for your nationalism, for your racist nationals. England flags. Told you to have them somewhere, didn't I? And it's not the most affluent area, and the people are just the normal people from council estates and what have you. But, you know, look, if you're getting bombed in Ukraine and you come here, it's just like a normal place to live. If you're coming from Somalia or from where, you think this is brilliant. It's got shops, it's got heating. This is the Western world that we're promised, isn't it? This is the Western shoe zone. Look, you've got a shoe zone. I'm not helping East tourism. This is what England's like. This is what most places in England are like. Stratford-upon-Avon that I showed you at the start where I live, it's not far from this. We've got a Debenhams and we've got all these things. We've got fewer of them these days and more of those posher shops because who can afford to take up residence and what have you. And we've had a recession where things have gone bust. But this is just normal high street, just England. I'd feel very comfortable here. I wouldn't bat an eyelid. There's a fella with a Ferrari t-shirt, but unlikely to be driving one. But these are just the salt of the earth, normal people, you know, working class, middle class. Probably not as high as middle class, maybe, but, you know, multicultural melting pot. This is Great Britain. What's wrong with this? You're so close to London that the property prices are going to be expensive regardless. You know, you've got opportunities. What I was saying about it being boring and horrible is that when you grow up in these areas, you hang out outside McDonald's with your mates and you go up the local record store or whatever, but there's no disco on, or there's no club night, and there's no, you know, investment into the youth. There's no youth club. There's no learn to DJ here or play your band here. You know, it's not designed for that. It's designed for little crappy shops to drain the meagre income of the working classes while they, you know, go to these shops to buy their clothes and their rubbish, and then, you know, it's a little consumer money hole for the monies that are earned by these working classes. They want you to spend it in these little shops and go in the bookies and the pubs, and that's it. That's the life. That is the life. So if you want more than that and you're, you know, interested and intelligent and whatever, you might get bored of being in a little boring high street where it's just, you know, nothing to do really. You can come out and get drunk at night. I'm sure there'll be some places to get drunk. But I can see why. Look, the money shop. Oh, they sell money. No, it's just you exchange your goods for money because you want to go and get drunk. Bit of national pride there, look. Bit of national pride. But look, with all the England flags. See how that England, all the England flags. It's not real racism, full racism, but it's like saying, look, you know, there's a lot of foreigners that live around here because we're an impoverished area, and you've got a lot of people from multicultural backgrounds, you know, moving into these places. But we don't want you here because we're English. I don't know. You get a lot of these estate pubs that, you know, state their Englishness in dramatic ways outside. Or maybe there was just a football match on. I might be tripping. It's not horrible though, is it? It's not horrible.
England. The town, in northwestern Kent, England, on the bank of the Thames River, opposite Tilbury, Essex, is living up to its name. You don't hear the name Gravesend and draw an image of some idyllic town.
Shut up. It looks nice. It's on the Thames. It's just up the road from London. It could do with a lick of paint. It could do with a bit of investment. But there's nothing wrong with this place.
The volume of bad reviews the town's having is counting it among the 10 worst places to live. Gravesend is educationally backward, apparently. Even though it has rail and road transport systems, the operations are not robust enough to facilitate movements and can't provide solid transport and support for the economy. Residents are listing their homes in markets so that they can move to more affluent areas. 5. Luton.
It seems like he's heard from some other report. He's got a report that he's not showing us. And it annoys me when people do YouTube videos like this. I mean, I am just reacting to someone else's content, so who am I to say this? But Learning Canteen, they've not done a big bit of research. They've got like one article. Oh, what should I do today? Oh, there's an article in the news. Oh, it says 10 to... Oh, all right, I'll say these are my 10. I'll say these are my choices. He doesn't know. He's never been to Gravesend. You know, he's saying these are his choices, but actually he's just copying someone else's homework and producing it as a YouTube video, and it's got 3 million views, and they're not even the worst places. Like, this is incorrect, it's rude, it's really pretentious, and he's just ripped off someone else's material. I mean, what a rubbish video, but that gets 10 million views.
They can move to more affluent areas. 5. Luton.
We already looked at Luton, didn't we? We already looked at Luton. It's not terrible. They've got an airport. Look at it. They're nice houses. You wouldn't mind living there. Living in those houses, I'm guessing those houses have got to be about 300 grand plus. Easily. Let's have a look. Let's buy a house in Luton. Like, you're saying these places are rubbish, yeah? You're saying these places are rubbish, but like, this is Luton. Look at that house. That's 400 grand. Terraced, 4-bedroom, spacious family home. Yeah, spacious family home. Looks like that, doesn't it? On the outside. Looks like that. Looks like that. Yeah. I mean, it looks a bit rubbish from the outside, to be honest. It looks a bit... They've had a lick of paint because they're selling it. But it's just a normal street. It's not like got some special... You know, you're terraced, you're next door, built on... Inside you've got nice rooms, nice kitchen, look, nice sofas and clean. That's what I say about my house. My house is not special, but it's really expensive when you compare it to, you know, how much things cost. I mean, that's 500, it's nearly £500,000 this house, 400 grand. And like, look, it's not awful. In fact, it's abject luxury. Luxury wonderland, isn't it? Big curved radiator on that one. Luxury wonderland. Lucky us, living in these big rooms that are clean and heated. Lucky us, you know. It's a I'll show you what, they've done the fixing up they can do on this. You can't fix it up much more, because you could sort out the exterior, but interior, you've got your most modern flooring. You've got your most modern, you know, clean stuff. It's all right. That's how we're all living. That's how we're all living in the UK, most of us. And the difference between the interior of a council estate and house and this is not much. It's space and the money to put on the nice tiles. But really, there's not much difference. It's just like, you know, loads of bedrooms, look, and it's a house. You've got a bit of a garden. But that is not even that, you know, when you say fixer-upper, what you can't do much unless you're going to knock out the walls and, you know, but that kitchen... You could replace the work surfaces, I suppose. You could have a slightly more modern kitchen unit, but, you know, it is about the sort of standard these days, isn't it? Look, wood flooring and... Yeah, it's not that bad. But what I'm saying is, that's 400 grand, yeah? Like, we're in Luton. That's 400 grand. I don't know if you can see it. Where am I supposed to do this? Back to search results. God, they really want your details, and they just chuff off and let me look at your website. Why do people make their websites so hard to look at? Yeah, 390 there, went past there. 390 grand guide price. This one, okay, now we're looking at something a bit more, you know, fixer-upper. Look, 200 grand, that's half the price. So now you're not in such a nice area, I'm guessing, because area is everything, you know, location is everything. You're not in such a nice area, and that front door leads straight onto the... I don't know if you can see that. That's your front door leading straight onto the street into your house. So we've got fewer rooms, and this is more of your, like, again, they've got carpets and they've got wallpaper and they've got clean, you know, it's just a small little place. You've got houses like that in Stratford. In Stratford, the same house would probably be 400 grand. It's just about the area. But look, you've got a little rough garden. It's not awful, is it? It's 200 grand, half the price. It's about the area, that is. But we're talking about an area, Luton, right? Luton, where you can get 2-bedroom apartments for 250 grand, where you can get houses, semi-detached houses that don't look all that on the outside, probably maybe not much bigger than a council house, maybe, I don't know, but that's nearly 400 grand. It is quite big and nice inside, look. 400 grand. You can't do much more for the wallpaper. You can change, the wallpaper. You can't even find a studio for that price where I live. Well, bloody hell, I don't know. You know, I'm not buying houses and selling them, so I don't know the market of everywhere, nor even do I know that much about the UK. But I know this is quite a lot of money, 400 grand. I mean, that is a nice place, isn't it? Look, you're not going to complain about that coming from Somalia or coming from fucking Turkey or coming from war-torn Syria or Ukraine. You know, it's not bad. Worst places to live in the UK. That's not bad. And it's expensive enough. I know that if I put Stratford upon Avon where I live, it's going to be a lot more. Same as what you're saying. Put that in. Yeah, we're getting a 3-bedroom for 375. There's the Tiddington Road. Remember I said about Millionaires Row? Millionaires Row, look. Swimming pool at the back. Told you, didn't I? Told you, that's that Tiddington Road we looked at earlier. This is only 3.5 million, 4 million quid. If you've got 4 million quid. So we can live like that round here. But you can also live like a much more normal person for 1.4 million quid on the Tiddington Road, anywhere on the Millionaires. But look, 1.2 million in the centre of Stratford, a little tiny house like that. In fact, I know exactly where that is, and I know people who live around there. Over £1 million quid for that. It's purely about the location, but it's very nice inside, isn't it? But there's not much different inside to the place in Oldham or whatever. It is a lot nicer, that is. It is a lot nicer. But, yeah, I'm surprised by some of the... They're showing us all the really, really expensive ones. That's not what I'm trying to look for. I'm trying to look for just a normal house around here. You know, it was just like one of those other normal houses. Grove Road, that's probably a bit more like it. So this is a much more normal house, look. Just a little normal house on the end there. I know Grove Road is actually quite big properties. A lot of these are former guest houses. But you're looking at nearly £1 million quid. And... big on the inside, so these are guest houses that have been turned into properties. But I don't know. Anyway, I don't know what I'm looking for there. I'm getting a bit distracted. Oh, my face is gone. My face is gone. I'm just going to switch the battery on the camera. Switching the battery on the camera, I'm going to make that work, and then I'm going to try and whip through the last of this bit of this video. I will say that I'm not sure that the camera is guaranteed to work, because we did a test shoot for... I'm trying to do two things in my brain. We did a test shoot for the podcast. I wasn't happy with the camera, so you're not going to see it. The image on the camera was not good enough. But I did a test shoot. The sound worked all right. I was very pleased with that, but the image we got wasn't very good. And during that test shoot, I got different batteries out and moved them around. So this is 100% battery again, thank God. But I don't know where I've got some batteries that work and some don't, and I mix them all up essentially. Thank God this one worked. Yeah, let's have a little look now at Luton.
Back in 1938, when Luton Airport was one of Britain's major airports and when the Luton Town FC had several successful spells in the league, hardly anyone could have imagined that the town of Luton would ever be one of the 10 worst places in England. But now, perhaps the only remaining thing going for the town, situated within the historic county of Bedfordshire, is its closeness to the M1, which...
What is he going on about? The only thing going for Luton is its closeness to the M1. They've still got an airport, mate. A lot of people still use the airport. Look, they've got a sports village, museums, Discovery Centre, Factory Arts Centre. You know, you have to. I was saying earlier about us not having one of these in Stratford. You have to have art centres that are supported by charity, essentially, like local councils or charity, to flourish and help people to flourish. They've got one. They've got a trampoline park. They've got the football ground, Luton football ground. Shit team. But you know, you've got things in your town. Look, and yeah, you've got a transport link. This road here, this road goes straight through all the way to Watford and London. Great transport link. I bet the trains aren't half bad, are they, as well? So if you're close to London these days, like that far away, it seems like a long way, but it's not. That's far enough away to live and work. You know, live in Luton, work in London, commute. People do that stuff. Luton's lovely. It's not awful. It's not brilliant, but it's not awful. It's kind of lovely in a way. Now watch, I'll drop us in somewhere random. Little houses, normal sort of place. Nothing wrong with that. Don't know what you're complaining about, mate. I mean, where did you grow up? Chuffing Buckingham Palace or something? Look at it. And there is a... Look, you'll see these people are... I guess they're Muslim, are they? Oh, they've gone. They've disappeared because they're wearing headdresses. But you will see, you know, immigrant communities everywhere, like I explained earlier in this broadcast, because places that were once working class Irish are now, you know, working class. It's just mixed communities. Fine, I'm happy with that. This doesn't look bad. Look, this looks like people actually care about their environment. Little Tesco Express. It's just normal like everywhere else. What are you going on about? Why is this the worst place to live?
Which provides a fast exit, thanks to the 3 motorway junctions and 2 railway stations. The poor state of the town may also be connected to its being an administratively independent unit.
Look at it. They've done up the high street. It's pedestrianised. At least they're making the effort to keep it clean.
Unitary authority. This somehow stifles the development in this populous town of some 220,000 residents. As the most populous town in Bedfordshire, it's one of the largest in the UK without city status.
So it's not awful.
4. Bradford.
Now we're getting up north, and this is what I said, you know, we should be up north if we're looking for the worst places, because, not because of my personal sense of, you know, social competition, but because the north of England has least investment and has suffered with, like, you had communities that were built up through industries that have been decimated deliberately, politically, mining, manufacturing, steel, shipbuilding. You know, all of that was sort of done away with in the 80s by Margaret Thatcher in favour of more service-based industry, banking, and that's all taking place in London. So, you know, there's a lot of investment down this end. I mean, the weather is better as well. I know it sounds stupid for me to say that, but it makes a difference, doesn't it, to how you feel about where you live. The weather's better. So places like Newcastle, Middlesbrough, Manchester, Liverpool, Sheffield, Leeds, Hull, you know, they're all big cities with lots going on. Manchester's got its own culture. Manchester's got its own vibe. It's got big clubs and TV stations, and, you know, it's like Manchester's the whole thing. But if you go to the worst place in Manchester, you'll get robbed. You won't even leave with your shoes, you know, because it's a big city, and like every big city, you've got some rundown areas where people have hardly got anything, and they'll turn to all sorts of crime to survive. And so Bradford, did he just say? Bradford's one of those. We're right next to Leeds. We've got a ring road. We've got an IKEA. Got a Holiday Inn, Science Museum. It's a big, you know, it's a big popular. This is not some shithole that you know, can say. Like, the people of Bradford will be very proud of their city and their heritage in ways. And it's not some shithole, you know. It's a built on the... Look at the big stone buildings. Look, it's built on the success of, like, mining industries, milling industries. You know, the industrial revolution that happened in Britain created these places, and then life changed, and so now you haven't got the same industry to support the same population, but it doesn't mean it's a shithole. It means it's going through tough economic times in certain aspects. You've had a lot of immigration, places like Rotherham and Bradford, and you've got a lot of communities who are trying to be upwardly mobile, but it's definitely not a shithole. Let's see what he says.
We've had enough of Bedfordshire. We find the next one of the worst places to live in England in a city in West Yorkshire, namely Bradford. Ironically, a city known internationally as a centre of wool textile and a city of the Industrial Revolution. It
What did I just say?
has no business being among the worst places.
What did I just
However,
say?
only 65% of its residents are really employed. So what do you expect in a city where 35% of residents aren't productively engaged? This explains why This explains why it's perceived as a city of extremes.
I mean, that is the case, isn't it? That's what I've been saying about these places in the north, is that, and in the UK and all over the world, I suppose, and Western world, is you've had places that are now, the shell of what they once were. 65% unemployment. We're talking about, people struggling, aren't we? And when people are struggling, then and the opportunities are not there because you don't have a mill and a factory and all those things that you used to have. You have to get an education and work in a call centre or, a service industry. Like I said, it's harder for some people, and it creates these pockets of. Look, the Clayton Golf Club cannot be bad, can it? You're telling me this is one of the worst places to live in England? Look at it, chuffer, look, lovely stone houses, heating, luxury, hills. You can't complain about this. Pretty. It's nice. Bradford's on his list.
Violent crime, burglary, sexual crime and murder. All these are above the national average. No wonder a resident describes the city as literally hell on earth. This populous city has issues with drugs, alcohol and gangsterism in public places.
Now, I don't know as much about that because I'm not in Bradford. Like I said, there are places in the UK that I haven't spent a lot of time. I've been to Sheffield, but I haven't been to Bradford in that context. But I would say, Birmingham's got problems with gangsters. Wolverhampton's got problems with gangsters. Stoke's got problems with gangsters. Liverpool, definitely. Manchester, definitely. Sheffield. The Bradford gangsters, look, that little city there next to Leeds, the Bradford gangsters are probably scared of the Manchester gangsters because Manchester's a big, proper city. They're a little smaller. You've got crime and you've got organised crime, but that's not the hotbed and heart of organised crime in the UK, Bradford. It's not. It's only got that because it's so run down and it's lacking other opportunities and investment and stuff like that, that it ends up, feeling like that. And I have to listen to what he said. I get what he's saying. I would expect there are some areas that I probably wouldn't be best suited to walking around of an evening. But I would also say that it's not chuffing, look, there's a little kids park here, look. This is not chuffing, walk around, get shot. Although, look, can you see at the top of the road there? I don't know if you can see. There's a little English flag painted on the side of a house. Wasn't there? It's gone now when I've zoomed up. I knew it'd do that. Big English flag painted. You will get a few of those, a few types everywhere, won't you? But these are not big mansions. They're little small properties. But, someone's nan might live there. It's not like chuffing. It's not awful.
3. Rochdale. Rochdale is another large town in Greater Manchester. As you can sense from its name, it's connected with the River Roch, actually located as the Dale of the river.
I mean, look at that. This is exemplary of exactly this sort of thing. In the north, those sort of buildings would have been built through the Industrial Revolution on the profits of milling. We had canals that went across the country and connected up these places so you could move the coal and the wool and what have you. So, this was hugely, Rochdale was hugely wealthy at one point. And I just want to search for houses in Rochdale if I can, please. Before we go, I want to show you that you can buy houses for nothing and also buy houses for expensive. Look, we're talking 300 grand for a 4-bed semi. Could you just chuff off with your cookies? I've just been on this website literally a second ago. So, 200 grand, 150 grand for a 3-bed semi-detached. So that isn't probably the nicest area, maybe. 80 grand. So you can't now. You will get these places where you're looking at reasonable interiors, modern interiors, but it feels like you're in a rundown area, I feel, because that's very cheap, isn't it? Very cheap, 80 grand. And you will get places in England where, let's see where we are. We're right there. It doesn't even look that bad, does it? It's not even that bad. It's just in a more working class area, isn't it? Because we've got the tower blocks. I mean, who knows? Maybe this is the high crime area. I certainly recognise this, like where I live around in Birmingham and Coventry. I probably wouldn't want to go hanging out here all day for fear of somebody eventually saying, "Do you live here, mate? Who are you coming to visit then? What are you doing here?" You know, maybe it is a bit rough. I don't know. Maybe it's the crime rate. Maybe it's the crime rate. But we're lucky. We are lucky. You know, I'm not from the worst part of the world. I'm not from the best part of the world. But, you know, 80 grand, a flat, your own front door, your bookies. A bit run down, isn't it? A bit run down. I could see the reasons people might veer away from this in certain aspects, but it's not awful. Look, it's not awful, is it? It's not awful. And if you're a immigrant or a victim of refugee from war, you know, this wouldn't be awful. You'd hope you'd be able to get your foot on the ladder, get yourself a little job somewhere, pay your rent, pay your bills. If your kid needs to go to school, there's a school up the road somewhere. Look, there's a nice church. Suddenly it's not so bad if you start going up these streets, is it? Newer builds. Yeah. Welcome to Rochdale. 80 grand, look. I want to show you quickly Hull Street for... Oh, come on with your typing. Liverpool. Homes for £1. Now this will surprise you. Homes for £1. Yeah, it says it there. Homes for £1. This is the Liverpool City Council. It's the official, actual Liverpool City Council, and these are the homes. Hopefully they'll show you. That's homes for £1. Let me show you the. Annoying. Might show you the street. Why don't you just tell me the name of the street so I can look it up? Smithdown Road. Okay, let's find that in Liverpool. I'll show you. So what we've had is some of these areas now. You can see on the map the way these have been built. They're terraced. They're these smaller, ram them in, more like American grid system. Ram them in, straight roads, pack them in these little houses. And the reason we've done that is because in the past those people would have worked at the local. I mean, where are we? We're at Toxteth. Toxteth's a dodgy part of Liverpool. Oh, you would not go walking around Toxteth in the evening. I'll tell you that. Certainly nor would I. But it just looks like normal streets. But these are little packed in houses that would have been, again, Industrial Revolution, and these people would have been like working class people who quite pleased to live in at the time, would have been quite spacious and, you know, decent houses for people who worked in the local industries. But now they've fallen into disrepair. The industries have packed up and left, haven't they? You know, your coal and your engineering and what have you, and you're left with more again, normal UK high streets and smaller houses that are less attractive to people, and they end up getting run down, crime areas, drug gangs. You end up getting a bit of that. And the reason that these houses, you can find some of these for £1, yeah, maybe not this particular street where it looks a bit more done up, but what you find is you'll find some streets where like everyone's moved out. It's all run down. No one wants to live there. Because there's in disrepair, it gets worse. And, you know, if there's no one living at a house and the drug dealers and the junkies are in there and squatting and what have you, then what tends to happen is that people move out more, and then you end up with like these empty areas. And the reason they were selling them off for £1, and they're little houses like this. You'd say to yourself, £1, I can afford a house for £1, brilliant. But nobody wants to live in the area, and you have to spend money doing up the property. Images maybe. Yeah, look, here's a better image of it. You have to spend, like, it's an empty, desolate street, and the people have all moved out. It's fallen into disrepair. If you buy that house, it only costs you £1, but it's going to cost you about 50 grand doing up the house, because if you want to live in it, and once you own it, you're responsible then legally for making it, you know, livable. The council will say, oh, you have to tidy up your front door, please, and, you know, stuff like that. And if you want to rent it out or live in it, then you can't have the roof falling in or what have you. So you've got to put some windows in, you know, that sort of stuff. So it costs you a lot of money, really. But thousands applied to buy Liverpool homes for just £1. The idea was they sell them off for £1, and they get decent people in who want to do that work, who want to, you know, renovate the street. And because you've moved them in together and they're all doing similar things, they're decent people, suddenly you've transformed the area, haven't you? Suddenly it's not empty homes with drug dealers and squatters. Suddenly it's a full street full of decent, upwardly mobile people with, like, positive ideas about life. So, also council tax, really good point, yeah. Why would you want to pay council tax on a building that, you know, is run down like that? But I think it makes a good, you know, it's made a good idea anyway. It's drawn attention to some of these places. But we were just looking then at Toxteth, you know, at Toxteth. Let's have a look at Toxteth in Liverpool, because it's known for crime. And the reason some of these places are on the list this 10 worst list on YouTube, I don't think is particularly a good list. Because look, let me move my browser so you can see again. Beautiful big buildings, and, you know, Rochdale that one was, wasn't it? Yeah, Rochdale. But, you know, I'm talking about places like this, aren't I? Places like this as being the worst places in the UK. So I think there's a contrast there, and I want to show you the price of the houses in Toxteth, and then I want to show you the crime. So this is this area of Liverpool. If I move the browser again, it's famous for being, you know, it's by the south of the get it up on here. It's south of the, we're in Toxteth already here, aren't we? Look, it's south of the main city, just, and it's by the river as it comes in. Toxteth, right? You know, it's right in the main bit of Liverpool. It's run down now because it used to have docks. We used to have, like, docking industry all along the waterline, and there's less of that industry now, so it's more run down now. Drugs, crime, those sort of things. A lot of drugs come through in the docks. A lot of crime goes on that way. People take their boats out into the water and, you know, meet the drug boats, what have you. Yeah, Toxteth. And if you want to go and live there, it's still going to cost you 200 grand for a flat. Look, 500 grand for an apartment. What are you talking about? I said Toxteth, didn't I? I wanted to live in Toxteth, like the worst places, and yet you can still spend £500,000 living in these places because you're so close to the middle of the city that, you know, all places are good and bad in equal measure, aren't they? Look, looks like one of the more simple houses, former council house, I would imagine. Clean, spacious. They've done the job on putting the modern flooring down. That's ready to be sold. You know, probably not in the best area in the world in a way, but you know, you're still looking at 300 grand, aren't you? Still looking at, sorry, move my browser so you can see it better. Still looking at 300 grand on that. So just because it's a rundown area doesn't mean that it's cheap, you know. Just because it's got a lot of crime, and that's the other thing I was going to show you. Toxteth. Crime. Just because there's a lot of drug dealers and... Oh, this fella come up many times. I wonder why. Just because you've got, like, you know, all this sort of stuff going on. The guns and the crime and the... you know, Uzis and the automatics. Serious crime, you know, serious business. Streets, drug gangs running the streets, sort of thing. Toxteth shooting there, look, 2 weeks ago. Shooting and stabbing of teenagers. School shooting. Sorry, a schoolgirl was shot. You know, gun and knife crime and all that. You know, you're still talking about 280 grand for a little place like that. And that's what I would say is probably one of the worst places.
Think of the implication of it
This is
being
back to
situated
Rochdale.
at the foothills of the South Pennines, about 5.3 miles northwest of Oldham and 9.8 miles northeast of Manchester.
I mean, I will concede that a row of council flats like that, you know, it's not most inviting, it's not, but look at all the green as well. And yeah, we've got people from lower income families, we've got people, you know, without jobs and all that. You're on the worst end of the poverty line. That causes all the rest of the social problems. Yes, Rochdale has that. Yeah.
The home of equitable pioneers that
But look,
first operated with the principles of the modern cooperative had negative reviews by most of those who had been there. The administrative centre of the metropolitan borough of Rochdale has shown no remarkable departure from the lifestyle of 1844.
who is this posh kid reading this out? Because how dare he slate these places with that convoluted language about... I mean, does he have no... Has he not met people on the street? Has he not been to... Before you make this video, the 10 worst places to live in England, that fellow reading it out should have gone to these places and asked the people, what do you feel about this place? Do you like living here?
When the Rochdale Society of Equitable Pioneers was founded, it's so bleak that a frustrated resident commented, "Leave fast or stay forever."
Leave fast or stay forever. Now, I would warrant, you know, I live in Stratford-upon-Avon, remember? This beautiful... this beautiful market town in the centre of England. You know, I live somewhere lovely. Look, lovely houses. Lovely houses. Let's just... trying to get back to the Shakespeare bit. Look, lovely market town, lovely Shakespeare centre. I live in this lovely paradise. Yeah? I live in this lovely market town, paradise. Yeah? Remember that? Also, the houses around and about, some of them can get posh. They can absolutely get posh. But the most of us just live in like a house like this. Look. Like a normal house. Yeah, like, you know, the normal houses, just like those other normal houses that we've been looking at just a minute ago, aren't they? Just like those other normal houses around all of the country, look. Just normal place. Little industrial park over here, look. So I live in a normal sort of place like everyone else. And what he just said about leave fast or die here forever, that's how we feel around here. You know, if you live in Stratford-upon-Avon, it's a small town. Yeah, what are you going to do? Go and work at this factory up here? Or, you know, what opportunities are there? There's the NFU. You can work in this call centre up here. This is the industrial bit. You could work in the town in one of the shops in the town, the touristy things. But really, you know, you want opportunities in life. You want things to go and do and see and interesting, fun things. Then you have to go up to Birmingham or maybe London. Coventry's an option, but it's a bit, yeah. But you have to go to London or, you know, for these places. This is the college up here. This is where I went to college, right? And we used to feel so fed up and frustrated at being in this little town. Of a weekend, there's nothing to do. The college, look, this is the college. Now they get all this building here. That's all foreign students. They get all, because it pays a lot of money. Every Chinese student comes with a big bundle of money, and they house them here, and they support the college that way. Honestly, a lot of foreign students. I'm not against it. I think it's cool, but it's just the way it is. So you come down into the town. Like, when do I want to go clubbing and want to go doing some stuff? I'll walk down to town. Let's go to a club. Let's go to a club. Yeah? I used to walk down here. This used to be a club here, but they've knocked it down. Literally knocked it down. The next best thing you've got, this used to be Chicago Rock Cafe, and it's closed. I showed you a lot of nice bars and restaurants in the town as we were coming down, didn't I? Chuff off with this rubbish. I showed you a lot of bars and restaurants in the town. There are a lot of bars and restaurants in the town, but you know, you can come and drink in a little pub, have a little beer in the Thatch Tavern there. But what do you want to do after 4 o'clock at night? You know, everything's closed. I wanted to go and, you know, meet my mates and go raving and see a DJ or a band. You can't do that in this town. There are no venues that have bands on. They used to sometimes have one on over here, but there are no venues that have bands. There's a little few pubs that have, you know, pub music with a person playing a guitar in a pub, but you know, there's no actual gig hall. You can't come and watch a live act. You know, the Pink Floyd aren't going to come and play, or whoever, you know, name your favourite. You do sometimes get live music in occasional places. I'm going to show you one down the end of this road. Over this, down here, Cox's Yard, this place has got the size of facility to have a band, you know, to have live music, but it's just a little pub area thing, you know, it's not like a big thing. So I've never been to, you know, there's been occasional times where you'll get occasionally an event happening, like, oh, can you believe it, Finley Quay's playing an acoustic gig at the Cox's Yard, let's go down. But you know, you don't really actually get bands and you get stuff. You don't get any DJ nights. I used to put one on. We had to finish at about, I think it was 2 or 3 in the morning, and I used to get really chuffed off with it. There was a little club in the town. It's now a little museum. But everything's closed by 2 o'clock. You know, there's no opportunities for, you know, getting out there in the world and pushing yourself into a creative space. It just is a little market town. So people feel bored and hemmed in, and, you know, you've got 3 schools here and young people growing up, and look, you've got a Costa if you want to come and hang out. This used to be a club up here, but now it's Cream Teas. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this was a club, this upstairs building here above the post office. But, you know, it's all closed down, it's all rubbish. You feel bored, you're hemmed in, you're fed up. So you get the train to Birmingham, or you get, you know, one of your mates can drive, you drive to Milton Keynes. We used to drive to raves at Milton Keynes or London or wherever. You know, you go out of town to get your excitement. Your day-to-day living, yeah, you can come to a shop or two. People don't generally tend to these days, do they? What's the point in going to Superdrug and Starbucks? Get everything on the internet. But it's got nice touristy shops for people to walk around in the daytime, the tourists. But for the people that live here, it's all rubbish. Like, the people that live here are not interested. There's a hardware store. If you live here, you go there and get your hardware. But over the road, you're not going in the Hathaway tea rooms for your fudge, and you know, these are for tourists, these shops. So you tend to spend less money here. You tend to go to bigger cities to spend your money for your nights out. Anyway, nice bloke called Mida runs that bar. He's a nice fellow. I like him. So Stratford's a little market town, and this, yeah, every town centre's the same in England. Absolutely, I agree with that. This homogenisation of the town centre has totally taken place. I'm not going to go into big politics on that now, but you're right. It's homogenised. The same shops spring up everywhere because they've got the money to. Look, there's our Debenhams. It's closed now because we had a recession. It closed, but you know, it's a big empty building. We used to have a Debenhams, just like we used to have a Woolworths, just like you did, until it closed down and became a Poundland, just like ours did. Look, Smith's, Boots. It's the same as everywhere. So you grow up and you feel frustrated and fed up and you want to get out. And so you move to the local, you know, you go to university in a town, city. That's what university does for you. It allows you to get out. I went to Bristol. Or you go up the road. For us, it's up the road to Birmingham on the train. And then you're up in Birmingham. And then all your clubs and nightlifes, you know, everything you want to go and do, is up in Birmingham, isn't it? There's the Black Country Museum. I told you about that the other day, didn't I? Remember? We had a chat about that the other day. The Black Country Museum in Dudley. We'll look at it another time. But yeah, you have to go to a big city essentially if you want to party. You know, if you want to go and see the Deftones. I wanted to go and see the Deftones when they toured. I had to go to Birmingham. If I wanted to go and see the Foo Fighters. When the Foo Fighters did their first UK tour, I went to see them in Wolverhampton. Look, Wolverhampton over there. And I had to go all the way from where I live, Stratford down here, all the way up there to see them, because there's nothing going on in these rural little places. Look, there's nothing going on around here. So for this person, taking it all the way back to say Rochdale is rubbish because you either move out or you die there and it's rubbish. That's like everywhere. You know, if you live in America, if you don't live in New York or LA or one of those places, if you live in chuffing Idaho, you're like, I've got to get out of here, otherwise I'm going to die in this small town. Like, that's the world. That's how it is, mate. That's how it is.
2. Hartlepool. Bearing the identifying mark of the entire headland, the town, doubling as a seaport in the northeast of England, is never the kind of place to live in if you're not condemned to be there. Looking at the statistical figures of the place, you'll see how economically deprived the area has been.
I mean, again, Hartlepool, we'll have a look. Economically deprived, I agree with. But I don't agree that it's a terrible place to live. Absolutely not. Look, I would love to live in Hartlepool in the same way as I love to live in Stratford. I'm pleased to, lucky to be there. Yeah, you're north of Middlesbrough, south of Sunderland. Oh, it's that horrible northern. Newcastle. Oh, it's that horrible northern. It's cold. It's cold. We used to have industry, now we don't. Oh, but actually, there's a lot of pride about these people that live in these places. They take themselves, fairly seriously. They have pride in their places. I'm sure the people of Hartlepool wouldn't say this is a shithole. Not all of them. Yeah, you want to get out. Yeah, you want to go to the big city for a night out because there's nothing to do in Hartlepool. Yeah, it used to be a tourist town and people used to go in the seaside, but now they go to Spain. So, yeah, and it's, people aren't out on the pier anymore. Yeah, I get it. It's a bit of a old person's, but look at it. There's the beach. That's beautiful. People retire to Hartlepool, don't they? They retire to these places these days. But it doesn't mean it's a shithole. Look, little houses. Clean streets. There's a little church. It's not a shithole. Yeah, it's underprivileged. Yeah, it's not got investment. Yeah, if you work there, you're probably getting paid less than someone in London. You probably have to spend less on your housing. I don't know. But this is quite normal for a lot of these former industrial play parks. The industrial towns nearby would have fed into the sort of holiday zone nature of these areas that were by the sea. But now it doesn't. Now it's gone. So you either revamp and reorganise and, come up with other ideas to attract people to live in your little towns. Investments, educational facilities. Certainly Bristol, it used to be ports and docking and now it's culture, isn't it? It's drum and bass and it's television. You find ways to reinvent, or you just become a bit of a hovel where people don't enjoy themselves. But I'm sure the retired people of Hartlepool don't think it's horrible. It's not horrible. Look, so lucky to live in these places. Yeah, you've got council estates and poverty everywhere in the UK, and the worst places have not been on this list yet. They put the 10 worst places. Look at it. That's not Toxteth. You're not getting stabbed up for crack there, are you? I should make my own list complete with my friend to find the worst place in England on Google Maps. Yeah. You should compete with your friends. We could make our own list on this channel. We can make a better list than this. But I'll tell you what, I don't feel like because I actually started this episode thinking we'd have a bit of a laugh at some of the worst places, and I could show the Americans who watch our channel that England and America are a bit different, and what we think of as worst places. Yes, we have people with knives and guns. Yes, we have people selling crack, and yes, you can get run off a corner, but it's just not downtown Philly, is it? It's just not downtown Chicago. This is not that. Look, this is not that, and there are places in England that are worse for that. Exactly. For me, it's not about the poverty. It's not about the lack of investment in town, although those things make a difference. It's about the way the people behave. You go up the Birmingham Small Heath on the way to the football, and it might look run down, and you might think, oh, I don't feel comfortable because all these shops are Asian and it's an immigrant community. But come on, Come on, once you get over that, once you hang out there and talk to the people and buy a few chilies and, you know, what have you, it's fine. It's fine. No one's trying to stab you up for crack or any of that. I don't know what goes on in Hartlepool because I don't live there. I've not got any personal experience to speak from, but it does not look like there is someone on the side of the street prostituting themselves, does it?
And how hard it is to land a job there. You'll also not be surprised that it has one of the lowest home ownership rates in the country. A few years ago, when the residents were polled, respondents rated their health worse than the national average in England. The town is also 20% less in the population of professionals with administrative and managerial skills. 1.
They've got some sort of list somewhere about jobs that they're making theirs up from. It might not be the best, it might not be the worst. Peterborough. Look at it. Are you shitting me? Peterborough, their number one worst place in the UK. You've got to be kidding me. I know Peterborough has a lot of immigrants. I know Peterborough has a lot of Polish immigrants. But you've got to be shitting me. First of all, where are we? We are in an absolute picturesque part of the country. Absolute picturesque part of the country there. You go any further east, never east, east, and you're into Norwich. And look at all this. This is all green. Look, you see how there's no. Close that. Just want to see the big map. See on the big map, there's all these yellow roads. Yeah, all these yellow roads. And as you go further over to the right, there's fewer yellow roads. That's because there's less built up area. There's more countryside. Less built up area. Fewer motorways. Look at it all. Rural England. Rural England. And yes, if you live in one of these rural places, like Marham, for example, a random example, you're going to say, I'm fucking bored of this. We haven't even got a local pub. What am I going to do at the weekend? I am absolutely fed up. If I want to do anything, I have to drive to my local nearest thing. And it's not even local or nearest. These are council houses. Or former council houses. So like everywhere, as I've said, you know, you get these places that a bit like Lighthorn I showed you earlier. Lighthorn had some nice houses and some rubbish ones. You know, it had a council estate next to an affluent estate, and yeah, you might get some smackheads and some Bradford, Luton, and plenty of Londoners. We've had a couple of those on this list as well. Bradford and I think Luton came up on the list, but again, Luton wasn't awful. It has got bad places, and you know, you might feel really fed up and bored if you live there, but it's, you know, it's kind of pretty. You're lucky that you've got heating. There's no prostitute road here. This is not a red light district. I've not got people up all night at 2 a.m. doing crack on the side of the road. Like, I used to live in city centre Bristol, and you know, you would walk home at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m, and there'd be people, you know, doing drugs. I remember even Dublin is a good example, a random example. I went to stay in Dublin, and I stayed in a nice hotel in the central Dublin, but just down the alleyway, down the side of the hotel, there was some guy doing literally like with the injection needle doing the smack down the alleyway in the middle of the big city night. So it's all cheap by jar, you get that. But if you live in a little place like this, yes, you will have some, you know, local rough people who don't care much about other people and society, you know, just being rough and rude, and you know, maybe even they've got drug problems because they're in poverty and what have you. You know, yeah, you'll get that. But you're also getting people walking their dog on a Sunday. You know, look, here's another new build estate. It's just not terrible, but it's boring, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. So Peterborough suffers with that a bit. It's the closest city, town, whatever you want to call it, to that middle of nowhere, isn't it? So it's like on the edge of anywhere. So it's a bit boring. You know, you're not talking about a big club zone. You're not talking about a big nightlife. But look at it. Look at this. It's old England, it's cathedrals, it's towns, it's streets, it's castles. I mean, look at it. Yes, we've got poverty. Yes, we've got council estates around here where they probably run you off their corners maybe. But that's not a bad place, look. That's the town centre. That's not bad. That's not bad. Peterborough. Big immigrant community. I know that for a fact. Doesn't make negative to me. I just don't see why they're Look at it. It's clean, wide, pedestrianised. That's all good in the hood. And let's have a look at the hood. Let's have a quick look at the hood. Where's the hood? I mean, I don't know which part you'd call the hood, but I'd be able to guess as we take motorways out of the area. And we want to be urbanised and near a motorway, don't we, to get cheap housing. So I think maybe, look, HMP Peterborough, the prison's round here, so maybe this is a rougher area. I don't know. I'm just guessing, just having a guess. But yeah, look, little council estate, little small houses. We're not talking about millionaires here, are we? But you know, you could do worse, I'm guessing. And I don't know if that's supported housing, if that's, you know, you've got an England flag in a window there. I don't know if this is like, you know, old people sheltered housing, or if this is just little flats, because often they shelter vulnerable people in little flats like that, ground floor living. But look, it's not terrible. People have got their cars on their drives. There's nobody on the street being a prostitute or selling crack. I don't know about, I mean, that looks just like where I live, around where I live. I'd walk past places like that day in, day out. I'd feel comfortable here. You could move me into a house here tomorrow and I wouldn't be afraid to go walking out trying to find the chip shop in the evening. You know, I just wouldn't be afraid. I might be naive, because you never know. It might be one of these streets like Mountbatten Way might be the place where all the rough people hang out, and you don't know until you live there. You know, you don't know until you live there, do you? But there's a little shop there. Maybe that's not the shop that you should be going in. Maybe people, you know, hang outside there. I don't know, but it doesn't look like it's kick me to death in the street sort of place, does it? It's just working class living. So this is a bad, I mean, what's the worst places? I don't know, because I don't live in Peterborough, but that's like not the best. But what they have got is a cathedral, an art museum, a cinema. I mean, we haven't even got a cinema where I live. Archaeology park. You know, you've got Tesco distribution centre, which means there's jobs. It's just not the word. IKEA distribution centre, like shopping centres, and it just can't be that bad, can it? It can't be that bad.
On Peterborough. Peterborough again. When will this Cambridgeshire town earn a very good reputation for itself as a good place to live?
Cambridgeshire. Chuff off. Chuff off. Cambridgeshire. Cambridgeshire can't be bad.
If you get carried away by the fact that the 12th century cathedral, Burghley House and other heritage sites find their home in Peterborough, you may become indifferent. Why then are the negative reviews by the residents?
So this is all, again, he's talking about negative reviews from residents. So their entire video is based on an article that had negative reviews from residents, and it's they've obviously done some sort of poll. Now we know that statistics and poll, you know, I can go out and ask residents what they think. The people who are angry are going to come out and tell me. The people who are happy are probably in their homes being happy, so you're going to get a skewed perspective. There's no way you can take these statistics to mean anything really. But are they going to list, they've got their website, where are the statistics? Look, what they've done, because I do this, so I know they've done this. Look, number 10, Middlesbrough. They've listed that there. You see how it's written there? Number 10, Middlesbrough. But they haven't written all of them. See how they haven't written all of them? It doesn't just say number 9, number 8, number 7, number 6. They've had to put their photo credits in, because that's legal. Yeah? All they use here, their entire video is made up of stock photography. So that's easy to do, because it takes you 10 minutes just to grab the stock photography. And then the script they're reading is somebody else's writing, isn't it? Either they've written it themselves, rewritten it from the article, but there's the article itself, number 10 Middlesbrough, copy and pasted. So they've copy and pasted that in there, so it's from somewhere else is the original full. Maybe they wrote it themselves and they just copied that bit in, or maybe they just copied that bit in, but it seems to me like they've got some other article somewhere else that's got a list of, they're talking about this questionnaire that people have filled in, people's survey about where they live, and so they've copy and pasted someone else's homework as their video. So it's really lazy journalism, it's really lazy production. In fact, it's so lazy it's almost plagiarism, and they're not giving you the link to the actual you know, I do this, like I say, sometimes I'll do a video about a computer game. I'll copy from their website everything they say about their computer game onto my thing, you know, copy and paste it in. And sometimes I'll do what I'm doing now and use some other media as a jumping off point. And I'll show you what the media is and where it's come from, and copy in the, you know, links to it, because that's the thing you should do. These people haven't done that. They're not showing you the original survey so you can make up your own mind. They've just taken the information someone else collated and turned it into a YouTube video, which again is someone else's work. It's someone else's images. It's like the most lazy edit in the world, and they've said mean, pretentious things about places that seem quite nice from a position of obvious. And again, I'm going on their voice. I've got a decent speaking voice. I learned to speak in a polite way. I don't speak in my what do we call it? Standard English. Received pronunciation. I don't speak like that all the time, because if I'm trying to buy drugs on the street, I have to say, "You right, mate? What's going on, man? How's it going?" You know, if I say, "Good afternoon, how are you?" then they look at me like I've gone out, because, you know, I'm on the streets trying to do a drug deal. So, you know, I'm not. I'm taking a random example. I'm not on the streets doing drug deals, but people use different modes of speech depending on where they are. And I'm answering the phone at my hotel. I don't have a hotel, you know, so it's another random example. But good afternoon, you're through to Scott. How can I help? But I'm answering the phone to one of my mates. You know, man, how's it going? So, you know, it's certainly. Sorry, I used your word there.
One of them described their home as the.
Oh, let's pause that. It's certainly someone who has never visited. Yeah, they've never visited these areas. They're coming from a pretentious position of talking down about these places, and they've picked a strange 10 because somebody else has picked a strange 10, and they're just using their stuff. So I think this is a really bad video, and I think that it's spreading bad ideas in the world. I think Learning Canteen are lazy. They're not even good journalists, and I feel negatively about this person and their means and mode of production. You know, the way they're making their content, I think, is pretty weak. But obviously that does well for YouTube. 3 million views. It's just weird, isn't it?
Biggest dump in England. He lamented the atmosphere in Peterborough as draining, making you feel completely isolated from the rest of the world and alienated from life in general.
Ridiculous. How can you be alienated from life in general when you've got this big open square, the fountain, there's kids playing in it, somebody's doing some busking? Like, look at it with its lovely buildings. I know that you get alcoholics come and sit on these steps. I'm guessing, you know, in my local town, the open areas that are beautiful have alcoholics coming. Yeah, I'm sure you do. You know, yeah, I'm sure you've got some drug addicts, you know, that always hang out the back of the fucking Argos or what have you. But how dare you say that this, when you've got Toxteth, where if we went for a drive, I drive you up. I know places within 20 minutes of me, within an hour of me, that I can drive you up there, park the car, you get out. I'm not gonna, because you're gonna get run off very quickly. I've been to these places. You know, I've been in the tower blocks. I've mixed cheek by jar with the people. I've been threatened by and, you know, invited in by, you know, equal measure. I remember I was in Bristol. I went up this tower block. This lad that I used to work with, he was selling me some weed. It's nothing bad, is it? It's selling me a little bit of weed. And I was up in this tower block, and like, it was cool. You know, everything was fine. We went up there. He walked me to his house after work. We went up there, and then I was like, "All right, mate, I'll see you in a bit." And he was like, "Oh, well, wait for me." I was like, "Well, you don't need to walk me out. You know, you're fine. I'll see you in a bit." And he's like, "No, I have to walk you out because it's dangerous." And I was like, "What do you mean it's dangerous?" And like, he got his dog, his Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and he took me for a walk to where I needed to go to get on the road to, okay, you go down that one, see you in a bit. But he was explaining to me along the way, he was saying, like, if the yardies or the, you know, the gangs or whoever, they look at you, then look at them back, stare them down. Don't be scared, because they'll see that you're scared and they'll come over and treat you like a victim. And like, and that was starting to scare me, the way he was describing the place. But he was just giving me the lay of the land, you know, the sort of be careful around here because you can be vulnerable. Lots of people go to Peterborough for the ice skating rink and greyhound racing. Well, there you go, you know what I mean? You're not going to go to the greyhound racing and the ice skating if it's a chuffing drug den of iniquity where you're stabbed up and left on the side of the road, are you? But, you know, I've been places where I've been naive in truth. I've been to the tower blocks of Aston. I mean, Aston is known as being like a rough area where you've got drug gangs and gun knives and, you know, all that business. You know, it's known for that around Birmingham. But I had to go and meet this fella up at, he lived in the tower block. I had to go up the tower block and meet him, so I had to go in there and do it. And I didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel safe. Nothing happened. But, I know there are places where you cannot literally, hang out on the street because they're not your streets. This person who's made this video has never even been in those situations I would warrant. I mean, I'll tell you honestly, big face. I'll tell you honestly, I skirt around this subject a bit on the internet because it's the internet, isn't it? And I'm not supposed to break terms of service and things like that. But, in my time, I've bought weed all over the world. When you turn up somewhere new and you want to, because I like smoking my special cigarettes. Just on the vape today, but I like smoking my special cigarettes. I'm not advising anyone else to do it or anything like that. I'm not, Bob Marley propagating the ideas, but I've been known in my time to want to smoke my weed, and that's how I roll. Fine, it doesn't hurt anyone. But I've turned up in some places, and I've been like, a good example would be Stockholm. Where'd you buy weed in Stockholm? I don't know. I've got to go and find out. But because I know the lay of the land, and because I know a bit about street smarts, I know there are certain places in Stockholm where I probably could buy weed, but also get robbed. So I'm probably not going to go down there. Not the dodgiest, worst bits. That's not where I want to go. But in my time, I've been to those dodgiest, worst bits of our country. I've been, in an individual or group that's been through those places. I lived in Bristol as a student, just like any other normal person. Mixing with and visiting sometimes those places. Lucky that I don't have to live there permanently. Lucky. But only there but for the grace of God go I. Not because I'm some super person that, I don't hang around with those people because I'm better than them. No, it's just because of the way the world is and life is, and, things go the way they go. Some people have good breaks, some people don't. Not everyone that's on drugs is a shithead, and not everyone that's a shithead is on drugs. I don't know what to say. I'm not trying to, you know what I'm saying? But I know my way around it. This person has no idea, though, have they? This person has no idea. Saying that Peterborough is one of the worst, number one worst place to live in England. Get off.
As hard as it is to describe the sordid situation in the town, you'll be made to feel that everything else is moving while you remain...
What's really funny is that their video is so bad for this reason. I'll tell you this as well. I'm not supposed to be dissing it. Bristol's been gentrified, I heard. Maybe it has, because it's been some years since I've been there, and certainly some of the areas that I was living in were in the process of. And like I explained earlier, you get an immigrant community, first wave, for example, in Bristol, Jamaica. Jamaican people, after the First and Second World War, felt that Britain was their home because Imperial British gone out to Jamaica, claimed it. The Queen is the Queen of Jamaica, so you Jamaicans are part of Britain. And can you come and fight in our war? Can you please? Please, thank you. And so, yeah, if you're going to fight in our war, then this is your mother country. Come and live. Like, no problem for me. I think it's good. We've got so much multicultural society now because of that. It's brilliant. But what happened in Bristol was those Jamaicans came and lived, and they had their areas, their segregated areas maybe, or maybe it was just about money rather than social segregation, or maybe there was politics of social segregation. Move on quite a few years, and you've got a more multicultural society, and a lot of those people have moved on and moved to the other. They've built their businesses, gained their successes, their children lived on the benefit of those successes and built more businesses, and now you have people from Jamaican heritage living all over the city in all different parts of the properties. Now the new immigrants come in. One of the new immigrant sets, for example, Somalia recently, or Syria or Ukraine, and they have to occupy those cheapest bottom of the rung houses. What used to be a Jamaican area becomes a Somalian area, or it becomes a Ukrainian area, because those people that were the first wave immigrants get the benefit of the society, the opportunities, they work their way out of poverty, and then there's a space there for the new impoverished to take up. That's the cheapest house, I'll have that, I'll live, and they work their way. That's how it works. It's just like one of those things. And so now in cities like Liverpool and Birmingham, we have Irish immigrants that originally were the bottom rung of the ladder, living in the poorest. They now make up some of the highest positions in society. Like, they're like the mayors, and they've moved out of the poverty areas into the affluent areas. They own some of the bigger buildings. Universities is important as well. Good point. I went to university in Bristol and was lucky for it, and there was 2 universities there. I went to the the rougher one. But yeah, it brings in a lot of people, and a lot of people who are happy to spend money and time and be happy and not trying to run the place down and sell drugs and commit crimes, who are, you know, trying to get somewhere in their life. There's a positive vibe about that. A lot of partying, a lot of clubs, you know, all that good nightlife. My kilobytes are up and down like a wizard's, not a wizard's anything. My kilobytes are currently up and down like a fiddler's elbow for some reason. Not to generalise, areas with Somalians are very different to areas which had Jamaicans. The culture within it might be different now, because Somali culture might be different to Jamaican culture. Modern culture is different to more traditional culture. Certainly, you know, crime, internationals, gun running, whatever. I don't want to get into that very big, but yeah, it's different. But theoretically, like when I passed through driving into Birmingham, when I passed through areas that used to be Irish immigrants, that used to be impoverished Irish communities, now they've moved on and up, and now they're spaces that they've left, or in Bristol Jamaican communities have moved on and up, hopefully, theoretically, and the spaces that are then left are now taken up by the new immigrants, like I said, like Somalia. So the areas might, you know, the culture might be different, but theoretically some of the same places, like the cheap part of town will always be the cheap part of town, and it's just different people can afford to live there, can afford to move out. Do you know what I'm saying? So that kind of happens, and in waves, because, you know, there are fewer Jamaicans emigrating to the UK right now than there are, for example, Ukrainians, I suppose. So it'll happen in waves. We theoretically should get a wave of Ukrainian immigration through Europe now, shouldn't we? And those communities will all come in. Like what happened in Peterborough was that a lot of Polish people came into the UK and settled in Peterborough. Yeah, these are facts. But what I was going to say as well was that this video is so bad because they've got all this stock photography. Yeah, this is me slating the 3 million views video. I get no views, but you know, I'm better than them. We're better than them. I'm better than them. I'm only joking, but what I'm going to say is important. Is their video is so bad because they've used all this stock photography, and the stock photography, look, all these Flickr stock photographies, free. They're probably free stock photography, aren't they? Free use stock photography. Just give them a credit. Free. You know, all that rubbish imagery, cheap imagery for your YouTube video. No one's gone around photographing the drug addicts. No one's gone around photographing the stabbings. No one's gone around photographing all the rubbish areas. So now you're forced to use photographs of Peterborough and stock photography. They're of all the nice places. And you're trying to say it's rubbish. And your images don't back up your script. Which means you've done a rubbish video. Like, media is about show and not tell a lot of the time. So you show people images, don't you? And you don't have to force words down their throat. But what we've done here is a failure to there's an incongruence between what you're saying and what you're showing, and that's bad media.
The sordid situation in the town, you'll be made to feel that everything else is moving while you remain stagnant and stuck in the dump. Thanks for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe, comment, and turn on the notification bell.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really bad piece of media. I think it's sensationalist because it's obviously trying to gain views through, oh, this is the worst. This is the worst. Have you seen the worst? Ugh. And it's pointing fingers without... I've told you at the start of this broadcast where I'm from, how I'm living. So I'm happy to point fingers and say that's this and that's that. And this is this. Open and honest. But for somebody to make this video and to not say, I grew up in, I had the luxury of, I was lucky to. I mean, I don't know if they went to a paid private school or like I did go to a school that you didn't pay because I couldn't afford to pay for schooling. But some people had different opportunities in life and different backgrounds. And if you're going to make a video about places in the UK, and the reason that you're saying they're bad, places to live was based on social factors, not so much crime. Me personally, I'm focused on crime because I think that's one of the worst things about living somewhere is if people are mean to you and physically criminal. You know, if they leave you alone, it's not so bad. So I'm big on the crime. They're big on people's surveys, and they didn't tell us what the surveys were and where they found them and what article it came from. Somebody else did that work, and they've just piggybacked on it and used stock photography that doesn't exemplify what they're showing, and they're sort of, it's a kind of sneering, condescending sort of attitude, isn't it? I don't know. I'm sure the comments are slating the video, or just foreigners saying it looks nice. Let's have a little look. I don't often look at YouTube comments. I tend to disregard them in general, but I'm listening to yours as you're talking. So, interesting list. I grew up in the US, so I've got no idea. Yeah, look, there's gunfire and most of the buildings are boarded up. None of these places strike me anywhere near that awful. And that's why I wanted to show you this today. I wanted to show our American friends that there are places like that in the UK, but I've failed to through this video, but I've managed to show you them because I know they exist. But yeah, what a terrible... It's giving the wrong impression to the people around the world. So it's confusing people. I was born in Sheffield. They didn't mention Sheffield. It's not a perfect city. I still love it. Yeah. It all depends on the definition of worst. I grew up in a small northern village where it was rough, but I made friends who would jump under the bus for me. So, yeah, small villages can be rough. Absolutely. A few people here have lived in Bradford. The way you listed Bradford as having drug issues out in the open, is there a UK city that doesn't have this? Yeah. So the inconsistencies in the video have been picked up. But it's a rubbish video by somebody who doesn't really understand things. Or if they do, they don't care enough about you and I. You and me. They don't care enough about people to do good things for people, to present media that makes the world better. In fact, they're making the world worse by sharing negative opinions about places that don't actually deserve them that much, and generally giving a misguided view on the culture that they're trying to represent. And they've got 3 million views in their advertising, and it's just not that nice, is it? It's just not that nice. It's a bit icky and horrible, and they don't care. They don't care. People who don't care make media, and you can see that they don't care in the media. You can see that they, maybe I'm giving this person a really, they haven't listed their name, who they are. There's no, what's the word? Accountability. There's no accountability in this. They're not going to be accountable for their work, but it makes bad things ripple. It ripples bad ripples. And when we make media, because I make media, I'm trained in making media. I've got an HND in making media, but at no point in studying the HND did ethics come through in a big way. And at no point did someone say, you should be careful about, like, I watch the videos I edit, yeah, as I'm editing them. And one of the final passes I do an ethical pass where I watch the edit and I say, is this making the world better or worse? Am I being ethically, uncertain in any of these places? And also, one of the most important things to me when we're filming people is, if you watch it and you're in it, I've interviewed you and this is your interview, and you watch that, how are you going to feel about my representation of you? Am I doing you a disservice? Am I being unfair, rude? Will I make you unhappy? Do you feel sad? Right, if the people that are in it, like Eddie Hall Strongman was a good example, because we did the Eddie Strongman film and we interviewed a lot of people, and his wife was quite an ever-present person, and Alex is a kind person and did a lot of supportive things for Eddie. And through the course of the film, Eddie's the main character and the main person, but Alex features in the film. And so any time that we did filming with Alex or about Alex or around her, I wanted to make sure that I always asked her, are you happy with what we've done? Is this okay, for you? I was also, I didn't have the final say on the edit, but I was always a voice in the ear. I was, the reason I was associate producer is because half of that film, half the ideas came from my brain. We used to sit in the car and talk about things, and I used to say my thing, and half the ideas came from my brain. I shot a load of it as well. I was always careful to make sure to say, these people are going to watch this at the end, and it's not for us to be like sneering or, if we feel like that and we're presenting anything like that. I mean, we didn't feel like that about Alex or Eddie or anyone, but, certain things might have come up and I'd say, be careful about the way we show that, or are we going to use that? I don't think we should use, I'm not the sort of person secretly filming someone when they don't know the camera's on and, all that sort of, we're not doing that. And so I remember at the premiere, I managed to find Alex in the, there's lots of people. Eddie's there in strong men and all that. I managed to find Alex after we'd watched the film and say, were you okay with it? Were you happy with that? Was there anything about that you want to change? No, she was happy. Absolutely. Brilliant. But I cared enough to ask. You know, not everyone does care enough to ask those questions. And a lot of the people, certainly some of the people I've worked with, would say it doesn't matter what other people think and feel. What matters is I get my film out there, or I achieve my goals. Well, that's not the truth. When you're making media, that's not what it's about. You're creating something that stands out in the world, like you're carving a statue. And if you put a great big cock on the head of the statue, you might think it's funny. But, you know, kids might see it every day, day to day, and it might cause, you know, confusions. I don't know. That's a funny example. It's not the best example in the world. But I believe you have to have a responsibility to society if you're putting media out into society. Certainly on a free platform like YouTube, you've got to think about these things. You should do if you're a good media producer. If you're not thinking about these things, in my opinion, you're not a particularly good media producer. And then I was able to knock this out of the park and knock the shit out of it by pointing out that it's not particularly good media. In fact, it's badly produced media. And the reasons are they've used cheap, if not free, photographs. Just clicking this one. This is some rights reserved. Oh, God, reject all, please. Would you just go away with your stupid cookies things? I'm guessing this is a Creative Commons. Yeah, Creative Commons, look. Attribution to generic. So they haven't paid for the media that they're using in stock photography. I don't pay for the media for stock photography. Chuff that. You know, why would I? But they might, because they're getting, you know, millions of views on YouTube. They might have thought by now it's time to, you know, pay for them. Anyway, they're producing this cheap. It's not even their pictures, not even their images, not their words either, I would warrant. I would guess they've... because you can see they've copy and pasted number 10 Middlesbrough. So I'm guessing that was from an article. I bet I can find it if I do this. No, I'm not able to find it. I thought if I type in, you know, that exact words, it would just bring up the article that they'd ripped off. But anyway, we've ascertained that they're doing lazy media, and the images are not even appropriate because they've just managed to find whatever they've managed to find. And quite often they've managed to find images that make the place look good, not bad. You know? So, not very good media. Not producing very good ideas, not sharing good ideas, not even producing their own ideas, and something for us to talk about, something as a good jumping off point for us. People do the same thing for Japan. Western media always tries to paint it as weird. Oh God, yeah. Do you know what? What about the laziest? James May did it recently. Whoop, have I gone out of sync there? Let me see if we've got James May. James May. No, I don't need to do it like this, do I? I need to do it like this. James May in Japan. Like, this is the laziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Our man in Japan. Like, how British. Our man in Tokyo. And now it's over to our man in Japan. And James May, who's a bit of a, you know, British kind of style guy, is out there with the wacky Japanese. Oh, look, all the food's funny. And all the... Oh, aren't the food funny? Isn't the food weird? You know, isn't it weird in Japan? And I bet they've got, I guarantee in this James May, our man in Japan, I bet they have him going into some weird sex place. Absolutely guarantee they'll have him going into some weird sex place. Look, they've got sushi. Oh, look, sushi, that's clever, isn't it? If you're going to use a national stereotype, why don't we use that one? Sushi, that's clever. No, it's not clever. It's the most boring, overworked, underthought, like the most boring, underthought, overworked, cliched, that's the word, cliched piece of television I've heard. I didn't even watch it. I haven't got time in my life to waste it with that sort of stuff, because you're absolutely right, Luke. Japan is seen as this sort of like, oh, it's culturally weird, and, you know, let's highlight the weirdness. And, you know, that's been going on for years now. It's just the only reason James May's doing it on Netflix is because they're so past the, you know, sell-by date. They don't realise that Wreckful went out there, you know, and showed us the real place, do they? They're still, you know, these are people that made television before YouTube. And I see a lot of stuff. Kenny versus Spenny's another one that makes me laugh. Kenny versus Spenny. I mean, as much as I love it, right? Kenny versus Spenny was made before YouTube, and I watched a few interviews recently where they were talking about how they didn't want to put all the episodes on YouTube for free because they can't sell DVDs then. And I'm like, you're an idiot. No one's buying DVDs. No one has a DVD player. Like, you're pre-YouTube, mate. And then Kenny was slating all the YouTubers. He was like, YouTube personalities are just nothing. I hate them. And I'm like, he thinks he's better than people on YouTube because he's been on telly. He thinks he's Hollywood and he's in a film. And he's better as a media producer than YouTubers. He doesn't realise that if he produced Kenny and Spenny now, it would be on YouTube. That would be the home of it. It is the home of it now. It is the home of it now. But it would have started on YouTube. And also, they talked about how their show was 400 grand an episode because they have to have a camera team for each. Kenny and Spenny each has a camera team, and editors cost a lot. And I'm thinking, don't be ridiculous. 400 grand an episode. I could make you one for 40 quid. Like, I edit, I film, I know it all. I don't know it all, but I know how to do it all, and I know how much it all costs if you spend the money. I know how cheap it is if you do it yourself. And I know that there's such a lot of backward thinking in the industry because they're older people who didn't live through the YouTube generation. They're not modern media producers. They're stuck in their old ways, and they want to be in those old ways because they want to be in the editing suite. That's privilege, being in the editing suite. It's not your crappy computer, it's an editing suite, mate. They want to use the expensive cameras. That's privilege. We're using the expensive cameras. They're not your crappy cameras, mate. Not everyone can do this media stuff. You have to be clever. But it's not like that. I've proved it. I've made documentaries myself for hardly any money that didn't make it out there. I'm going to show you, before the end of this year, I'm going to show you my indie dev documentary in full. Whatever, I don't care anymore. In fact, this weekend I'm going to make a concerted effort to try and export it again. But it's weird the way they do this. They have the condescending attitude. This condescending attitude towards Kenny and Spenny specifically, towards YouTube media creation, and the idea that their show is worth 400 grand an episode is ridiculous. And that is this. Netflix have got so much money, and Amazon have got so much money that they're busy making terrible television. They've got a big space to fill, lots of content. I'm getting in a rant now at the end of this episode, I don't know why. They're getting a big space to fill, lots of content they need to put on their streaming platform. There's competition, there's Amazon, there's Netflix, there's HBO, there's this, there's that. Well, why don't we fill it full of so much chuffing content? We'll throw the money at it, because we've got the money to throw at it. But does it mean it's going to be any good? No. Are you better off just watching the BBC? Yeah. Was this better when these people were just on Top Gear on the BBC? Yeah. Is this rubbish? Yeah. Do you need to spend this money for Netflix? No. They're trying to con you by throwing together hastily cobbled and it's because those people at that top end that are throwing the money around, that are directors. I've met a few, bear in mind. I've met someone who used to work at the BBC, and they had this really, the word is condescending again, I guess. This attitude. I was like, oh, we can just do this with my little camera, and they're like, no, you'll need an ATEM switcher, and you'll need and I'm like, I don't need 50 grand's worth of media equipment, mate. I can just do this on my little camera. And they're like, yeah, but you really, most people have got cameras these days. Yeah, you can shoot it on your phone, can't you? Yeah, you shoot yours on your phone. You're rubbish. Me and my mates, we can't do this without an ATEM switcher. I'm like, shut off, mate, an ATEM switcher. OBS does it for me these days. So, it's this weird attitude to media production that should be acceptable. And the reason that it is because the people that are involved, the cameramen, the directors, they're all of that old school media production. So they're even probably you can even get young people today that go through film school and come out with a snobby, condescending attitude because they went to film school. Oh, it's going to be 400 grand an episode, mate. I don't edit for less than £1 a day. Like, fuck off. You should see the amount of media I've made on my YouTube. I don't know if you've known this one. I'll just quickly show it before I leave because now I'm getting on a rant. If you go on Ganji Kid, my YouTube channel, you go down to True Binaural and ASMR at the bottom there. On here, you can find videos, and if you sort them by the most popular, so it's actually a really convoluted, long way to get to this, isn't it? No wonder it hasn't got enough views. ASMR documentary, full film road trip. That's my first film, my first documentary. It's 45 minutes long. I made it myself with my mate, and it cost me £500. And it is a proper documentary, a proper one. It's got Emma Whispers
starting
Red
an
in
online
it.
store.
It's got Emma Whispers Red in it and a load of other people, and it's a proper documentary about ASMR. Look, watch this. Look at that. There's somebody doing the ASMR. Let's show you the interviews. Let's get the one about Emma's at the end, isn't it? So here's Emma. Emma Whispers Red ASMR. And this is an interview on our documentary. Oh, sorry, I've moved. This is an interview on our documentary that I made. All right, Omar, just a minute.
And yes, it's not always about who's got the most, views and everything. So it's quite a vast melting pot.
So if you want to watch the ASMR documentary, the ASMR documentary, full film, free road trip. I put it out for free on my YouTube, and it's a full documentary film. And I didn't have to have 40 grand an episode. I didn't make James May in Japan, but I made a documentary myself. I know how these things will roll. So yeah, Paul Hollywood did a show in Japan. Oh God, I bet that would be awful. The editing is horrendous, a little bit racist too, I bet. I'm sorry, Luke, you can't put a clip. You can't. It won't let us have websites in the comments. Right, Omar. It won't let us have websites in the comments. No www dots in the comments. Won't let you do that. So yeah, I've managed to get myself all riled up now. So I'm going to just chill out because this whole thing was supposed to be chilled.
Fact that
this whole thing was chilled, wasn't it? It was chilled. Might go and buy myself a 6-bedroom house in Peterborough for 50p. I'm not going to look at the Paul Hollywood things. It will make me cross, and I imagine that it does exist, and it is exactly like those things I've just described. And these are the gatekeepers. That's my final word on that. Is just that these are the gatekeepers. These are the people that are still. James May has no place on television. You know, he should not be producing television. They should not be pumping money into him. The fact that he's on there is keeping people like me off. I'm not trying to get on there. I'm not trying to get on television. But, like, he's taking up space where someone actually creative could be. And it's just rubbish, isn't it? And all that rubbish makes me cross. And then you look at these people who are producing this media here, and this is rubbish as well. And it's rubbish that spreads bad messages and lies and worst places to live in England, and it's bad news. I don't know. Let's try and find some positives now. Let's try and find a positive. I don't know. Can't think of one. Can't think of one. Oh no! How long have I been on? Let's have a look at that. I bet I've been on much. Because I'm trying to do. I said to myself today that I'd do a half-hour episode, or like, you know, this was an 8-minute video. 3.5 hours we've done on an 8-minute YouTube video. So, oh, I'm a chuffer. It's supposed to be smaller. I was supposed to be doing smaller streams so that you can watch the whole thing and not be like, well, that's 3.5 hours of my life gone. You know what I mean? Who's going to be able to? I'm not going to be able to advise you, because I do say, I say, why don't you take a look at my YouTube channel? Not just True Binaural, but the actual Ganja Kid channel. And down here, because you're watching it on this channel right now, all the streams, look, all the streams, catch up on them. But who's got all that time in their life to catch up on them? I mean, you might want to put them on at bedtime or something like that, but look at them all. I'm never going to get, like, more views on my Mental Health Monday Raw Ghost Psycho. How am I going to get more views on this? I need more views, but they just disappear into the ether, don't they, these videos? So the longer I do them, the harder it is for people to consume them. So what I'm trying to do is make shorter, more concise episodes about interesting topics like England, the worst places. You know, make interesting for our American viewers. Little concise thing, nail it, and bang, done. Done 3 hours, 3.5 hours. So I can't get that right. All right, my little chuffers, you be good, my little puckos. I'll be back, not tonight now, because I thought I'd do a little this afternoon, a little bit tonight. Now it is tonight, so I'm gonna have to go and walk the dog and get on with things. Trying to get an early night to try and get up in the morning. That's what I've got to start doing more of. Yeah, and I'll see you anon. I'll see you tomorrow. And if you want more, check out the internet site. Check out the Ganja Kid. If you want more, I've been Gravekipper. You've been good. And if you can't be good, I'm going to make you live in Luton in a 4-bedroom house for 50p. So you won't like that, will you? Well, you might do, because it might have a nice cinema and amenities, and it might just be a little bit boring for the local youth. But actually, quite a nice place when you think about it. And if you're coming from Ukraine and if you're coming from Syria, welcome, all aboard. Me personally, I'm welcoming. You're quite welcome to come and live here and contribute to society, because we need more people like that are forward thinking and positive, and less people like the 10 worst places to live in. Less people like learning canteen. Fewer people like learning. Less of the learning canteen attitude, please. Thank you very much. Right, and you have been good. See you in a bit. You said see you, so I said see you. See how that works? Just rubs off, doesn't it? I imagine more people in the world say chuffing these days because of the amount of chuffing